Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's
Morning.
having a wonderful holiday season so far. I want to go ahead and call to order the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida weekly meeting for Tuesday, December 6, 2022. We will start off with an invocation by the Dr. Wayne Smith from the Masters Academy of Vero Beach, and then we'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Joe Fleischer. But first, I'd ask everybody to rise and have a moment of silent reflection for our first responders and members of the armed forces.
Father God, we come before you this morning on a Tuesday. In many respects, Lord, this is just a regular Tuesday. The sun rose. We will enjoy the wonderful weather here in Florida, and the sun will set. But yet this needn't just be an ordinary Tuesday. We know, Lord, when we invite you into our days, when we invite you into our business, an ordinary day can turn extraordinary. A day without purpose can be a day with purpose. And I ask this for this meeting here this morning with this chamber, with these elected officials, that the business that is conducted, the decisions that are made would have purpose, have meaning, that you would direct all deliberations, and that you would be acknowledged and uplifted. We are thankful for the Christmas season. It's been a joy to see the festivities and the hats and the decorations this morning, and we are reminded that Christ came to presence himself here in this world to be our Savior, and we pray for a blessed Christmas season over Indian River County. Bless this meeting, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America, land of the free because of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you all.
All right, moving on. Commissioners, any deletions or additions or emergency items to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item 11A. That's update regarding proposed Sebastian annexation agreement. I have had a request from the city of Sebastian through the city manager. The draft was sent as a courtesy from their attorney to our attorney. This contract has not been negotiated with the property owner, the county. We are not a party to that discussion. Any involvement we will have will come after that. We've already, just as a matter of making this public record, have caused issues or problems between the city and the party with whom they are negotiating. So while we hold in high regard home rule and always ask that our home rule be respected, I think we need to respect the home rule of Sebastian. And I would respectfully request that this item be pulled at this time. Thank you.
I have a motion by Commissioner Moss to pull item 11A. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I believe the item is on the agenda because there's been correspondence, and we, as a body, assigned staff to discuss this with staff of City of Sebastian to get to a closer area of understanding. And in doing so, some documentation has been developed, and I understand that the documentation was sent to our county administrator, and the purpose of the discussion today is in anticipation of the December meeting that's going to take place in Sebastian. If we were to take this off the agenda, then we would have no understanding of our thoughts, and we are not interfering in any way, shape, or form with the annexation understanding with the property owner and the city of Sebastian by discussing in any way the understanding of, or the anticipation of the needs of such a move. I
the-
asked the,
With all due respect, simply having it on the agenda, we've already interfered with their negotiations, and to continue with it just further aggravates the situation.
I don't believe that that's the case. Once again,
Well, that's what they believe.
this is not an element of support. This is an element of discussion. The citizens of Indian River County are also in the balance, on the hook, as we are, as the citizens of Sebastian are, and this is the only way that we can discuss our thoughts on what we need to do, what this group, this body has to do, representing the city, the county residents, the citizens, who we have to put first as well. So it's not a matter of debating home rule. Once again, I believe that we have no say whether the annexation takes place or not. We're not interfering. We need to do recommendations to ensure that it is done right. And that has been the discussion all along. This is in no way, shape, or form wagering the intent or the validity of the annexation agreement. It is a separate issue. There are needs, and there are infrastructure concerns that we need to be able to vet out so that they know what they have at the table.
Well, I respectfully disagree, and they don't believe that they need us to tell them how to do it right.
Well, they also may not agree that they may need the county for such unimportant things like water, waste, sewer.
I just have a procedural question. Commissioner Moss made a motion, but I did not hear a second.
Yeah, I didn't hear when I,
So,
That is true. I open it up for discussion if y'all want to discuss it.
well, if
We
there's
can-
no,
we can
se-
do it.
if
We
there's
have
no
a motion.
second,
You're-
then
You're correct.
the
We'll open
motion
it
would
up after
die.
this. I have
for
a
lack of a
motion,
second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Moss to delete 11A from today's agenda. Do we have a second? Seeing no second, it pulls for, it stays for lack of a motion. Commissioners, anything else?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer for approval of the agenda. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Adams. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed, nay.
Carries 4-1 with Commissioner Moss dissenting, sorry. All right, moving on to the next one. We have a proclamation and presentation, a presentation of proclamation honoring Teresa Hansen on her retirement from the Indian River County Sheriff's Department. And this may be a first, Commissioner Fleischer, that you have to give up a Sheriff's Department proclamation to our former sheriff.
Well, it is my honor and privilege to be able to do that. You've made that decision, but more importantly is that we have the former sheriff on the dais.
Absolutely. I can't.
So I yield.
Commissioner Lord, the floor is
Thank you.
yours.
Thank you, and it's a wonderful day today, and I'm honored and proud to read this proclamation. So, as mentioned, Mr. Chair, it's a proclamation honoring Teresa Hansen on her retirement from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Teresa Hansen is retiring from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office effective December 1, 2022, and whereas Teresa began her journey at the Indian River County Sheriff's Office on November 4th, 1996, and has served with distinction over the past 26 years. And whereas Teresa was employed as a public safety dispatcher for the duration of her career, and whereas over her tenure, Teresa received many acknowledgments and commendations for her efforts, including the Life Saving Award, the Honorable Service Award, and the Civilian of the Quarter Award. And whereas Teresa worked diligently under 4 sheriffs to protect and serve the citizens of Indian River County and of the state of Florida. And whereas Teresa's remarkable dedication to her profession has earned her the appreciation of Sheriff Flowers and all of the others that had the honor of working with Teresa. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, and the board lauds the contributions Teresa has made to the citizens of Indian River County during her highly successful law enforcement career, and we wish her a very, very happy and prosperous retirement. Adopted this day, the 6th day of December, 2022, and signed by all 5 county commissioners. Congratulations, Teresa.
Very much for
Sheriff, turn that speaker on.
Thank you very much for giving me this honor. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of years of hard work and dedication, not just by me, but all the dispatchers that have worked for Indian River County. I think the only other thing I would like to say is that the commissioners, please keep in mind that the infrastructure of our county is growing beyond means that we have already, and that they need to take that into consideration. And I'm talking for law enforcement, fire medics, and dispatch. And they need to keep that in mind because it's outgrown what we have already in the county. But I thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa.
Commissioner
Mr.
Fleischer.
Chair? Yes, the sheriff mentioned that Teresa worked for many sheriffs and had the honor to do that. I want to point out that Teresa worked for the citizens and worked for the deputies responding to calls. And Teresa, I want to say personally, thank you for getting the deputies the right information in a timely fashion, in a professional manner, to ensure that they got home safe as well.
Thank you.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Yeah, I worked for you too.
Thank you.
And I might add, as 26 years as a dispatcher, I think that's really about 46 years of your life. Because
Wow.
not getting breaks and sometimes the conditions that we all know, and we're very proud of them. That's one area, the 911 center that, speaking of myself, didn't have to worry too much about it because of the leadership and the longevity that we had in there. So Teresa, congratulations to you and good luck.
Thank you.
Teresa, thanks so much. I remember many a time talking to you on the radio and on the phone over my career, and the fact that we have three first responders up here that worked with you at some point in time is really kind of unique. But I appreciate all you've done, and you've touched countless of lives that you may never even know. But you did a great job along with some of your counterparts that I know very well and have known for many years. And like the former sheriff and now commissioner said, you have probably spent 46 years there of your life instead of just 26.
It seems
so.
like it, yes.
But we appreciate everything you've done, and thanks so much. Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Moss, anything?
Thank you, and enjoy your retirement. It's
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for your comment about the infrastructure and, the need exceeding it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have the
Sheriff?
honor to present Terry with her package of gifts that we provide to our retirees. Congratulations, Terry. And I just want to say that, thank you, Terry. Obviously, you have a list of awards here that, we couldn't possibly include in all the proclamation. We'd be here all day reading that. So thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for all that you've done for the citizens of Indian River County. I know we have other folks here that want to speak as well on your behalf. I just want to take the opportunity to say we're going to need about 5 people to replace Terry in the dispatch center. So for folks that are out there watching, please apply for our dispatch positions. We're actively recruiting for those positions. And also on Terry's note about the infrastructure, I would just continue to say, we say it every time we're up here, our dispatchers should be receiving high risk as part of the Florida retirement system. It's something I bring up every single year. You guys have heard me say it over and over again, and we will continue to fight for our dispatch team to receive that high risk retirement that they so deserve. Robin?
Terry is a huge loss. Taking her experience out the door, and we have a few more of those coming up, retirements. We have people in that room for 38 years that are getting ready to go, and we truly need new people in that room. They're never going to replace the experience that Terry and the rest will be taking, but we have to start somewhere. Terry's going to enjoy herself now camping.
Yes. I bought a
And-
camper and a pickup
Yes.
truck so I can go travel.
As the sheriff mentioned, we are still fighting to be recognized as first responders and appreciate your support in that.
Nobody else? All right. Well, Terry, thanks so much. We appreciate everything you've done. Come on up.
Enjoy, thank you. Good to see you. Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hey, yeah, I can imagine. Congratulations, enjoy.
Hanging in there. You're at 30, 35?
How are you?
I am
Good, good.
Hi. Good to see you. Yes, ma'am.
Come on in.
You don't go anywhere. One day.
38 years.
All right. All right. Again, thanks, Terry, so much for everything. All right, we have due minutes to approve and information items from staff or commissioners not requiring board action. In keeping the tradition of our former chairman O'Brien, the Indian River County venue calendar, as you can see, is full. The recreation department and everything going on is way and above and beyond the holiday season with all the exercise and Santa Claus stuff and really cool stuff. So I would ask everybody to go to the website and take a look and see what they've got going on, because they got a lot of stuff. So I probably won't be at the yoga or Zumba class though, Mike. So,
Oh,
but I may do the pickleball or something, something like that. All right, the next things, commissioners, you all saw the new committee assignments. Hope you're happy with those. If you're not, I'm sorry. So. Okay, now we're moving on to the consent agenda. Commissioners, anything on the consent agenda that doesn't make your muster? Anybody from the audience wish to have anything pulled from the consent agenda for discussion?
Motion to approve.
second.
Seeing none, was that a motion, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Seeing none? All right, the consent agenda is good to go. So moving on to public hearings. Public hearings 10A1, consideration of the Bertan property of Indian River County LLC, request for land development regulations, LDR, amendments to sections 901.03, 911.10, and 971.13 to allow automobile parking and storage in the listed zoning districts there. So I do have, this is a public hearing, and we'll start it off with Mr. Mattson.
Okay, let me introduce Brian Sweeney, Chief of Current Development, who will be making the presentation today. The swearing in and all that.
No, it's legislative. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, for the record, Ryan Sweeney, Chief of Current Development. Today is the second and final hearing of the land development regulation amendments to allow automobile parking and storage in the Pro, OCR, Med, CN, and CL zoning districts. Brief background on how we got here. An applicant submitted an LDR amendment application to allow automobile parking and storage specifically in the CL zoning district in order to allow parking of vehicles across the street from their office site. A few months later, a second interested party requested to piggyback on the original applicant's request to allow automobile parking and storage in the OCR zoning district. And then for consistency purposes, staff also is recommending that all lower intensity zoning districts, which include Pro, OCR, Med, CN, and CL, allow automobile parking and storage as an administrative permit use. The LDR amendment process is legislative in nature. It requires a public hearing by the Planning and Zoning Commission with a recommendation to the board. And then, since this particular LDR amendment is changing the list of allowable uses by adding a new use, or I'm sorry, not adding a new use, but adding new zoning districts allowances, it does require 2 public hearings, the first of which was held in November, and today is the final hearing. The proposed ordinance will amend 3 different LDR sections. Section 901 creates a definition for automobile parking and storage. 91110 adds the specific A's uses to the Pro, OCR, Med, CN, and CL. And then the 3rd section is to create new 971 criteria, which are specific criteria for these particular zoning districts, and it does also require Planning and Zoning Commission approval. I ran through the criteria last time, so I'll be very brief. There are a total of 7 specific land use criteria. Item number 1 requires all parking and storage areas to be paved and must meet dimensional criteria. Criterion 2 prohibits parking and storage of commercial vehicles, boats, or RVs. Criterion 3 prohibits commercial or pay-to-park facilities. 4 requires a lighting plan and appropriate shielding. 5 requires a type C buffer and 3-foot tall opaque feature between the parking area and any residentially designated properties. 6 requires all other standard perimeter buffers to all other project perimeters. And 7 requires a remote or freestanding site that serves any adjacent site to be connected via existing or proposed sidewalk or pedestrian system. And staff does support the LDR amendments based on the definition, the administrative permit use requirement by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the specific land use criteria. At its regular meeting of September 22nd, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend that the BCC adopt the proposed ordinance. And on November 1, 2022, the BCC considered the parking ordinance, did not recommend any changes, and by a vote of 4-1, set the second and final hearing for today. And staff's recommendation is that the board adopt the proposed automobile parking ordinance. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions of staff?
None at this time, sir.
I'll open this to the audience. Public hearing is open. Anybody wishing to comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and
Morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Paladin. I'm the owner's rep on this project and represent my client and have from the very beginning. We've worked with code enforcement, worked with staff, worked with the county, and agreed to all the accommodations that are required to get to this point. The landscaping and everything will be done to a standard approved by the county, and it'll be an asset to the community. And also, we've worked with code enforcement to where there were several code violations on parking and things of vehicles being parked in the right-of-way and everything. This will help accommodate alleviating that situation. So we work very closely hand in hand with code enforcement and staff. And I intend to be a part of this project to the very end. I'm very proud to represent my client. She started this business herself, cleaning houses, and now she employs 90 people. I'm very proud to say she's my client. And we would like to see a 5-0 vote and support from the county and going forward. And I continue to work with the county to the very end. And any problems that occur during construction, I'll also be overseeing the construction element of this project. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll be happy to take your questions.
any further comments?
Mr. Chair, I want to,
We have to close the public hearing
Go
first
ahead.
in a second. So, any further comments? With that, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners,
Mr. Chair, I've driven by her place. I don't personally know her, but I was thinking about it over the last few days, and with the courage that a medium-sized business owner has to take on this challenge to add additional nice parking for her employees, I think it's going to continue with the trend of making our county beautiful. And with that, I move staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Any further discussion, Counselor?
If I may, I just want to be clear about this. This is a change to our land development regulations. It's not just about one piece of property. Now, I understand what I heard about what one property owner which was doing, which was fantastic, but I just want to be clear. It's about all the different districts. It's not just about one particular project.
Yes, sir, I'm aware of that.
Commissioner Moss?
My objection to it stands as it did last time, and that is that we had requests from only two parties and engaged in sweeping changes in response to two requests. And my concern is, as I stated previously, a proliferation of parking lots. And I know at this time we don't have, it doesn't include paid parking or anything like that, but once you have all these parking lots out there, what's to prevent one or two parties coming forward and requesting that they turn into paid parking? And then all of a sudden, it's another sweeping, response to it, and you have all this paid parking. So still have that same concern, and I am not in favor of this. Thank you.
I mean, I've said my comments before, but just to clarify with Ryan, this would allow parking lots next to or adjacent to other businesses across the street or catty corner. It would require them to be maintained like anything else, correct?
Correct, yeah. It would,
So they're not just dirt lots.
no, these are paved parking lots. With
Exactly.
all the required infrastructure, stormwater, landscaping, striping, everything that goes with it.
And they must meet all the other requirements to even be able to have this benefit.
Correct.
And Phil Mattson, Community Development Director, I'll just add, there's sort of a wild west of parking. If a guy owns a business, people are going to go to it. They're going to accommodate, they're going to park where they want. This is a way of channelizing it, making it safer. You don't have people with, high heels walking across an unpaved, muddy lot, twisting an ankle, et cetera. I think this is superior to what we have.
And we're being responsive to our business community.
Absolutely.
And providing
Was
solutions. to
requesting
what
this.
would otherwise be code enforcement issues. So I
Correct.
think it's fantastic. I support the motion. And I've already said my comments at the last meeting.
I too made my comments at the last hearing. I think this is a good thing. I think it cleans it up. I think it does make it more organized and effective, where people are just not parking everywhere on right-of-ways and the side of the street and everything like that. They can use it. I think this is a good policy. I think it's a good move by community development to look at this real hard and move forward to this. And the planning and zoning approved it, and we went 4-1 last meeting, and I think it's a great idea. So that being said, we have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed? Nay.
The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Moss dissenting. All right, let's move on. We'll move on to 10B, public discussions item. 10B1, a request to speak from Bill Rigby in reference to the First Amendment and due process. Mr. Rigby.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bill Rigby. I reside at 8465 59th Avenue. I'm here this morning as Vice President of the Westboro Basketball Progressive Civic Club, and on behalf of the President of the Citizen and the President and the Citizen of the Westboro Basketball community. I'm here this morning in the orderly and uniform application of the law. For the past few weeks, or the past time I came before this commission, I believe my civil rights have been specifically, and my First Amendment have been violated. I have the right to petition to the government of a readiness of grievance, and additionally, I believe that interfering in suppressing of my point of view when I speak. According to the U.S. Constitution, I have a First Amendment right to criticize public officials and to be free from any retaliation for doing so. In the month of November, I was unable to complete my speech before this commission on November the 8th and November the 22nd. Each time I was interrupted and stopped by this commission, which violate my First Amendment, because I believe, again, you're still trying to suppress my point of view. I want to be clear on this. Mr. Chairman, you stated on November 22nd that I'm always coming before this commission making accusations without solution. But that very statement you made about me, I believe, is accusatory. Because I believe in my heart that you did not come in our community to ask for any solutions or input from the community. Commissioner Laura, you stated that I'm a good researcher and also stated that this is not the right venue for the CDD Commission. I remember when you was a sheriff, Mr. Laura, that you came into this venue, or let me say it like this, you didn't go to a garbage can, you didn't go to Building B for whatever you wanted. You came into the venue of this chamber to petition the county commissioners for the sheriff department funding. So I'm asking myself, what venue shall I attend? Most of our time is spent with the county administrator, which is Mr. Jason Brown, about issues in our community. And because of the time spent with the county administrator, sometimes we felt it was not necessary to come to this chamber, because most of the time, when we went to Jason, we pretty much resolved issues. So there was no need to come before the county commissioners, because we solve it at that level, and I think he can attest to that. I'm going back a little bit on the CDD, just a little bit, not much. And a statement was made that there were several meetings in this chamber about the CDD. But I'm saying this morning, I did not know about the CDD project until I read it in the newspaper. And what I read in the newspaper said that the citizen, excuse me, in Sebastian said that they had been open about the annexation building, and they felt that the county was not being very openly about the community development district. So upon that, I went to the board of the clerk of the board to get information on the CDD, and I came in to speak on several occasions. And one time I got up and asked about the Florida Stats that was involved with the CDD, and the next time I came to the meeting, it was also about the funding. It was specifically stated that morning that, hey, we're here only for the funding. So I obeyed orders. So since it was all about the funding, I didn't get up and speak. But I got on the agenda and came and spoke on November the 8th, and I came and got on the agenda on November the 22nd. Now, here's what I'm going to say this morning. It says that you had 6 or more meetings that was held in the county building, and at least 25 people was involved in the discussion about the CDD in our community. But in that meeting now, there was no representative from the West Wabash community, and we asked the question, why? Therefore, we believe, the board and the president of the West Wabash Progressive Civic League, we believe that our due process was violated. And that's why I always read this parable. I'm going to read it again this morning. Politics is a process in which who decide who's going to get what benefits out of life. And remember now that you guys made a policy on October the 22nd concerning and establishing the Liberty Park project into the Liberty Park Community Development District. That's what you did. And I think it was 2022-012. That's the policy or ordinance that you adopted at that time. I'm going to read this again this morning because it's important again. And I think I'm saying it again, I think you guys said that I was being accusatory of this, but I'm going to read it again. If in effect that the normal function of a representative government is being bypassed by commissioners or developers under the guise of constitutional, where these mandates impact the people without their input. That means that when the CDD came about, and that 25 people that was in that room, we didn't have anything to say about that. And I believe that if the representatives of the West Wabash community or the president was in that room, I don't believe I'd be here speaking to you guys today. I really don't believe that. I believe that we could all sit down in that room at that time, hashed it out, and moved on. I really believe that. Because you say you had developers from the community, bankers, the county administrator was there, the county attorney was there. Mr. Brown know my phone number. Mr. Reingold know my phone number. They know the president phone number. We all should be part of that meeting. That's all we're saying here. And to us, we feel that you're trying to ram it down the community's throat without having the input. We just want input on our community. We have a right. I love my community. Wabassa is the lowest thing on the totem pole. And all of you guys know it. We don't know how to get nothing to Wabassa. Moving on. And we're saying that this is a major problem. It appears that the politics and policies of this city project does not work for the benefits for our community. Therefore, we're asking the commission again to think about this project. Think about it deeply. It's our community. We deserve to have a say-so in our community. We deserve that. In closing, the 14th Amendment allows for the due process clause in which the West Wabassa Progressive Civic Club was denied due process. When it comes to the West Wabassa community and the West Wabassa Progressive Civic Club, you use snail mail. But when it comes to developers, you use internet speed. Why do I say that? I say that because this. From December the 21st up until now, you have been working on the Community Development District. To me, that's internet speed. Because if you count the months out now, December 21st up until now. Now we have sewage. This is just a reference point now. We have sewage in our community right now. And it's taken us almost, 14, 20 years for sewage and water? But look at this. December the 21st up until now, you went and voted on this. But when it comes to our community now, it's always snail mail. It's time out for that. I believe that if we work together for a better community, because I love my community now. Straight up, I love my community. I feel that it has been neglected too long. I feel that it should be something done. And I feel that Mr. Brown on November 22nd, he mentioned about the Wabassa Corridor. Where are we with that? Where? Nowhere. Here again, but CDD, bam, December 21st. Up until now, you're moving. Are there any questions?
Mr. Rigby, thank you. I would tell you that the Liberty Park project, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, has probably been well in effect for working over probably 10 years?
I think 2008 it was approved by the board.
2008, so it's been a long time. I would also tell you that I appreciate you coming. I would disagree with you to say that any civil rights or your First Amendment rights have been violated at all in any aspect of this, because you're able to come here at a meeting and express your wishes and express your concerns and your opinion, and I appreciate that. I would tell you that if you have questions that you want to talk, you can call me. I'm the chairman of this board. If you want to sit down, I'd be glad to sit down with the West Wabasso group and come to any meetings. If you would so wish, I'll make myself available, and we can speak of your concerns, because I'm a guy that when you come here to a meeting or you come to my office with anything, you have a problem, I want some solutions in turn. I want some ideas coming from y'all. So I'll be glad to, as this chairman of this body, to meet with y'all at your convenience whenever you'd like. I'll come to a whole meeting. We can meet here, we can meet there. I thank you for coming, and take that as an invitation to give me a call anytime, and I'll be glad to meet with you, and we can go from there.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you for that, but I want to make, I believe, one correction, and that is that since the Liberty Park project has been on hold for 14 years, that is true, but when the Liberty Park was on hold for 14 years, it was under the guise of the county. What I mean, it was under the rules and regulations of the county. But when you move the Liberty Park project, which was a Liberty Park PD, the TND, when you moved that now, you went over to the Community Development District, which curtails 190.003, 190.005, 190.006, 320.04, and all. And let me say this, and I'm gonna take my seat. When I read that, I see no correlation. And somebody, I'm not the smartest person in this room, but somebody can please tell me where's in the county planning of the CDD Liberty Park that relates to the Community Development District that's in the Florida stat. And can somebody please tell me, I'm not an attorney, can somebody please tell me how does the Community Development District relates back to the county in the application process? Because all the application process has not been done.
It's all there. I'll be glad to explain all that to you when we meet.
All right, I'll do that.
I would tell you to give me a call, and I'll be wherever you want to be, whenever you want to be.
I'll do that.
All right,
And thank
thank you. All right, moving on, 10B2, request from Gifford H. Hampton in reference to new golf course. Mr. Hampton.
Morning, Commissioners. I'll be very quick. I've got two items, actually, that I'd like to quickly mention to you. But before that, a couple weeks ago, I went to a funeral for a dear friend over in Sarasota. And it made me so happy that I live in this county, where I've lived for over 30 years. Nothing but high-rises, congestion, crime, and what used to be a community very similar to ours. So thank you for keeping this county the way it is. On to the golf course. I am a golfer. I play at Sandridge. It's one of the top public facilities in the state of Florida. It's over 30 years old. It's the only full golf course facility in the county. As you've probably heard from the manager, it's getting very crowded out there. And while they can accommodate all the golfers now, I'm afraid that in the near future they won't. So I would like to request that you consider your planners starting to look at this. I would imagine it would take at least 4 to 5 years from beginning to end to get a new golf course in this community. I'm sure we have plenty of land available, and my understanding is Sandridge has always paid for itself. So I would hope that a new facility would do the same thing. Second thing, real quick, I live in Antilles at the corner of 65th and US 1. It is a disaster waiting to happen. There's no stoplight there. Antilles is finally built out, 260 homes. Across the street on 65th Street, there are numerous developments. I would guess a minimum 700 to 800 homes between US 1 and 58th Avenue. They're all pouring out to US 1 because that's the closest Publix. Someone was killed there a couple years ago. It's going to happen again. There's a light at 69th Street. I was told that it was put there because of the packing house many years ago. Packing house is closed. It'd be very easy to move that light down to 65th Street and eliminate a real traffic problem. So I ask for your consideration on that, and I thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Jason, I don't know if you'd rather me have Mike answer this question, but talk about Sandridge real quick and the stuff going on, the new clubhouse, all that sort of stuff real quick.
Yeah, so thank you, Commissioner Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. As you know, we've enjoyed great success out there. To that end, not long after Sandridge was opened, we added a second golf course, and we do manage the capacity very well out there right now. I don't, Jason and I have not discussed any future plans, so this is new to us, sir, but certainly worth an internal discussion for the long-range planning, but certainly right now our focus is on the internal expansion within Sandridge footprint to add a state-of-the-art clubhouse and manage the volume of just over 100,000 rounds a year. If we do have capacity at that rate, so if we see the capacity ticking up, it may be worth a discussion, but no future concrete plans to expand at this time.
Thank you. And with reference to the signal in US 1, I know Public Works Department is always reviewing different traffic studies and traffic counts and stuff in that area. So, all right, thank you for coming.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
There's a rather long history on the Antilles light request assessment, and I want you to know that it is US 1, which triggers off FDOT's responsibility. I've had lengthy discussions. We've had requests for traffic assessments to see if we can provoke a warrant for a light. It is not a very simple move, as was suggested, that the light be moved. We're talking a rather huge investment by FDOT. We cannot place that light where the citizens wish, although it would be considered, has been looked at, reviewed, and I believe that our Public Works Director has made several requests for traffic analysis by the FDOT, consideration by the FDOT, and all was met with insufficient need, so, or not one that would require their action.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, anything further? All right, moving on to item C, public notice items. Counselor.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of those. So first one is a notice of public hearing scheduled for December 13th. This will be for the county-initiated request to amend the 5-year capital improvements program. The second public hearing will also be on December 13th, which will be to consider resolution electing to use the uniform method for the levy collection and enforcement of non-ad valorem assessments for street paving in the Oslo Park area. And finally, our third public hearing scheduled for December 13th is to consider an ordinance authorizing the extension of the temporary moratorium for an additional year regarding Class B biosolids. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Item 11, County Administrators Matters, update regarding Sebastian Annex Agreement. And let me start with a remark just saying, since that came up at the beginning of the meeting, I feel that this will be an item, it's just an informative item for us as commissioners from the correspondence the county administrator has received. Again, we do honor home rule for Sebastian. They can do what they want. They can set their densities. They can annex or they cannot annex. It's entirely up to them. But it is part of this county, and we do have to provide utility services, so I think that's important that we stay in the loop and that we stay abreast of the situation. But it's not in our purview to make decisions for the city of Sebastian, and I think they're more than capable of handling their issues themselves. But with that, I'll turn it over to our county administrator, Mr. Brown.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this item is basically, an update for the board, also staff's basic last opportunity to get any direction from the board, if there is any direction, prior to the December 14th City of Sebastian City Council meeting, where the annexation agreement will be considered. I believe that's the plan, is the calendar that has been communicated to us, along with the annexation itself. Do want to just give a little bit of background, and I will add that as we had the discussion up here about the city of Sebastian, they have, just to go back just briefly before Thanksgiving, the city attorney provided a draft copy of the annexation agreement to the county attorney, and that was shared with staff. Our understanding at that time was the city was relatively close to an agreement with the property owner. It seems like maybe there's something that's different there, based on the city has asked that we would not have this discussion. However, this basically is our last opportunity to get any direction. So I will say that based on the communications brief discussion I've had with the city manager, any of these comments are going to be based off the most recent draft we have. Of course, that could change. And again, with respect, and obviously there are some city officials here, and I'm sure some of them may like to speak at some point. But I just do want to say that reiterate, yeah, this is not something about the county trying to interfere with the way the city is doing their annexation. I think our basic interest is provision of water and sewer service to the area. I will say that we had initially sent a letter to the city with our requests for what we'd like to see in an annexation agreement. That was August 31st. We had a meeting with city staff, I believe, on September 15th, where we had a good discussion, I think, and then forward to now, where we did get a copy of this. Going back to that August 31st letter, there were kind of two categories of comments. One was comments that we had regarding the county provision of services. Primary amongst those is water and sewer. Also, some transportation, potentially fire rescue, some services that the county would continue to, that the county provides within cities as well. And then the second category is, hey, just some helpful comments that we'd like to see that are clearly the city of Sebastian's own planning process, not anything that we, want to interfere in, but just kind of advisory, like advice you'd give to a good friend. With that, I would say, with the caveat that this agreement is not final, but based on this is the most recent copy that we have, I would just say, basically, largely the county, again, appreciates the opportunity that we've been given to provide input into the process. And I want to say there's a lot of things that we like that we saw in the agreement. One example, there's an affordable housing provision in there. I think that's very positive. And again, that's something that's completely between the city and the property owner. If that's something they agree to, that's wonderful. We think that's a good thing. There's also provisions in there about large tract development, and it looks like a lot of the things are set up for it to be kind of a master plan type opportunity, things that we think are positive, along with height limitations, and some good things like that. One question that we have is a clarification on the density, and again, this may be something that's in the mix here as far as something that might change, but the current document that we have indicates a cap of about 9,000 residential units. It says, it calculates that as a 3.2 units per acre density. That, in my simple non-planning math, that sounds more like 4.5 units per acre, which again, the density is the city's concern. Ours is basically the units. Is there a clarity, because it talks about there's like a reduction for the open space requirement and things like that. So just clarity on the 9,000 units per acre. Is it a 9,000 unit per acre, or is it something less than that? I will say, I'll make my comments based on the 9,000 units per acre. Again, happy to see some things in there that we asked for, like what appears to be a desire to have the property connect to pressurized reuse, which I think is very helpful. There are some other things we were looking for, a larger acreage site for possible use for a water sewer plant. That wasn't itemized in there, but a lot of these things might be something that we could work on as the process moves forward. So I think the main comment is that we see a lot of things that we like here. The biggest question is, I think there may be more work to do as we go forward in making sure that we're able to provide water and sewer services. Our intention is to do that. However, if we're talking about 9,000 units, that's at build out, that would be, over 20,000 residents. So you're talking about adding another city of Vero to that. And obviously that's not going to happen overnight. It would obviously take many, many years, but when you're planning utilities, you need many, many years to plan for that. That's just a large number for us to serve. And we've got other growing areas. We've talked about Liberty Park. There's many other developments that we're committed to provide water and sewer services to, and we have a limit to the amount of water that we have. We're currently permitted for 12.8 million gallons a day, and we're using the vast majority of that. Adding another potential 3 million units to that, there's just some things that we'll need to work out. So basically just wanted to kind of, on the record, say that we think that there's a lot of good things here as from a planning process, and we think it's very good. We just think that we're going to have more work to do. We're going to need to coordinate more with the property owner going forward to be able to provide water and sewer services staff would recommend that we send basically a letter, stating that all of these things, hey, we like what we see here. We've got the question on the water and sewer provision of services. There's a couple of minor little things like definitions that we, maybe have questions on, and like the density as well, to just get that clarified, and basically would seek any authorization to send that. A couple of other things, some transportation related things for things that might be on connected to or part of the county roadway network. And with that, that's basically my comments and recommendation to the board, but just wanted to get direction from this. We've got a new commissioner with Commissioner Lohr, of course, who hasn't had a chance to weigh in on this and didn't want to take any action without getting some board direction. So with that, I'll stop talking and turn it over to the chair.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, and again, I'll repeat myself a little bit to say I think that for us, this is just informational for me. I want to keep the dialogue open on a positive note with all the city of Sebastian with regards to this, because it is important for them to succeed and do what's best for their city, but it's also important for us to succeed due to the infrastructure with regards to the utilities and the, like you said, in the county roadways that will be affected by this. So, we have to work together. There's no, as far as I can tell, there's no adversarial discussion with this. There's been no negative discussion with this. It's just questions that we've had amongst staff about this. And I think we'll continue to have those questions and do those and have those questions asked in a professional and positive manner and return back from the city of Sebastian the same. And I think that we can do that. It is my goal to see if Sebastian chooses to move ahead with this project, to them succeed in the best of way, and for us to help that project succeeding through the services that we have to provide, being utilities and road infrastructure and emergency services, along with sheriff and fire. So with that, I'll stop talking to commissioners.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciated the update. As far as the intent of the update, once again, it did not discuss the annexation decision. What it did discuss was a need that's out there, something that was discussed with the city of Sebastian as far as administration, to ensure that we got closer to reality on what is needed and what is projected. And I believe that it's all fair information that should have been discussed. It was done in good faith, once again, and I believe we have the correspondence to justify all of that. I did want to ask, just for those who are here or listening, that the importance of this it will be pointed out as I asked the county administrator what our consumptive use is and what we have available use when we're looking at a possibility of a development of 9,000 units. As far as a plan or intent to do that, whether it's the county or an annexed City of Sebastian project, it will be needed, it will be done. If, as we grow, we have to increase our infrastructure. But it comes more to the surface when this discussion is being made and we now have a landowner who's going forward with an agreement. We're not interfering with it. We need to know how it's going to roll and what the needs are. So for anybody listening, could you identify the consumptive use that's going to be projected or needed, and what we have available for use?
Yes, so our current consumptive use permit from St. John's River Water Management District, which is the governing entity that allows us to pull the groundwater, out is 12.8 million gallons a day. We are using the vast majority of that allocation right now. We're actually working with St. John's to see about expanding our consumptive use permit so that we can continue to serve additional development as it moves forward. This at 9,000 units plus the estimate of the commercial and industrial uses that might occur there at build-out, which again should be many years from now we would anticipate, is 2.8 to 3 million gallons a day. So we have to be concerned about serving this area as well as additional other areas. We mentioned Liberty Park, but there are all kinds of different developments in different phases of approval that we need to serve, as well as undeveloped property that we haven't seen. There, somebody owns 80 acres and they want to develop that. We've made a commitment, if they're in the urban service area, to provide that service. There also have been discussions about is there time to, is it time to look at maybe making an adjustment to the urban service area? With that decision would come the need to be able to provide water and sewer services there. So that's kind of the big picture of where we are. And earlier today, we did approve a water supply master plan exercise. That's a requirement of St. John's to amend our comp plan. And so those are the types of things we'll be looking at. And so that's why the size of this project is more than just if something's coming in for 200 homes. That's the normal thing that we can absorb, but it's a significant amount, and we are using the vast majority of our consumptive use permit today.
When you say vast majority, are you indicating that it's about 11.2, 11.3 at this point?
Yeah, we're using within a million gallons a day of our current consumptive use permit on a routine basis. So we don't have a lot of additional capacity. Again, we are working with St. John's to amend our permit to see about getting additional allocation and different increase in our consumptive use permit. Over the long term, we're also, as you know, looking at various different other alternatives for additional capacity that we will need to construct going forward in the long term.
Thank you.
Commissioners? I see we have City Manager, Mr. Carlisle, and Councilman Dodd, and the attorney, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate it. Paul Carlisle, City Manager, City of Sebastian. We're going to always continue to work with the county on this annexation. What I expressed to Mr. Brown was this isn't a final document. It's still under review. It's still under negotiations with the landowner. We hope to have a final document sooner than later. But we're happy to work with the county. This has been the most positive since the last one. This has been a very positive relationship working with the county planners, the county administrator. As you all have said, it has not been adversarial, and we don't anticipate it going that way. But we do have a lot of work to do on the agreement. We want to make sure we get it right, and we're not going to rush it, as everyone has said. They don't want to see that happen. But we want to make sure we get a fair deal for the landowner, a fair deal for the city. And as I'd mentioned in the last meeting that I had spoke, this, as you know, doesn't only affect Sebastian, it affects Fellsmere. It also affects the surrounding property. So we're looking at this as a partnership and a way to grow our city in a responsible way. And we're more than willing to talk to staff about their concerns over water and sewer. And I think we'll find an agreement that we can all find a way to support. Any questions for me?
No, just, Paul, thank you for stating that. Thank you for stating that you didn't anticipate or believe that there was any adversarial action here, because there is not. And more importantly is, in the beginning of the meeting, to make a request to pull this off the agenda, I believe was leaning towards that. It might have suggested that we interfered in some way. Again, this was all done in good faith, well-founded discussion that between administration, there are real needs. And again, I been supportive of every endeavor, and I believe that this board, as a body, is as well. Once again, we can't make that decision about the annexation, and that wasn't the purpose. The purpose is to ensure that we all know what we have to do, what you'll be needing, and it is a rather large project. So I think we have to do a little planning as well, and anticipating, and open discussion is always healthy.
Absolutely, and the reason that I had asked to pull the item was because it wasn't a final document. And I didn't want you all making a decision or making comments on something that isn't final, that until it becomes a more solidified document. I didn't think it was appropriate at that time for you all to weigh on a document that may or may not be accurate at this point. It hasn't been negotiated. So it wasn't adversarial on the city's end. It was I would rather you make comments on a document that's more, is closer to a final document. That way you don't have some of the questions that Mr. Brown had. We can clarify those density questions that he has, because those are still in flux with the landowner. So we're more than willing, as we said, to meet with staff, meet with your staff planners, our planners, and discuss it. At the end of the day, we've got to have something that works for us and for the landowner and obviously the residents and you all in Indian River County. It's a moving target right now.
Yes.
And Paul, I look forward to that discussion, whether it's, I mean, I understand what your concerns on this document, but on the next one, and when you all get ready, we can discuss it further. I think continue to talk about it in whatever fashion is healthy for everybody, and that's what I'm looking for, is a good, healthy, prosperous conversations that do well with this.
And Mr. Chair, I can tell you that it has been positive conversation. Every meeting that we've had with Mr. Brown and with your planning staff has been positive, and I think we can get there.
Good.
I do have a question for Mr. Carlisle. This is on, the final document is on your agenda for the 14th?
No, this is not on, this agreement is not on the agenda for the 14th yet. It's not finalized.
But is the intention, I mean, because that was the original timeline, is the intention for the final agreement to be discussed and approved on the 14th?
I don't know that I'll have a final agreement in time to put it on the 14th agenda.
Okay.
So
The reason I'm asking is because if there are changes, and I think Jason is asking us today to allow staff to send a letter expressing whatever the questions that were discussed about final numbers and the few little odds and ends, based on, obviously, on the draft that we have, which is not arguably the final version, but as we work through the process. But so then you're saying there'll be something final, but if it's going on the 14th agenda, I just want everybody here to understand that means that we don't have another chance, we don't get together again until after that, correct? Or right before that?
Commissioner Adams, I mean, the next
Tuesday?
meeting is December 13th. I think what staff's concern was, we didn't want to have a meeting on the 13th and then turn around that day to deliver a message to Sebastian. It was our goal to try to get them a message, a week ahead of time so that they could at least understand our issues. And then plus, Jason Brown and I have attended almost all, if not all, the meetings starting back in 2019 to today. So we were just seeking direction from the board as to how to go about attending that meeting on the 14th. But if Sebastian doesn't have an annexation agreement ready for the 14th, does Sebastian anticipate deferring the item to January or another meeting? I'd be curious to understand that timing issue.
So we're discussing options with our city attorney and with city council on how we can move this forward. And we haven't got a definitive answer on that yet, but I have to have this annexation agreement completed by noon on Thursday to get it in the agenda packet, and I don't anticipate.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I'm just trying to understand the timeline, because I know it's ever shifting and stuff like this. I totally understand that.
And again, I don't want to just approve something just to
Right.
approve it. If I have to ask council to continue it to a date
Right.
certain, we can do that. There may be contingencies that they can approve annexation pending other items. And so there's ways that we're seeking answers on that so that we make sure that we get this, as everyone said, get it right. And I think we are, and that's our plan.
No problem.
And we want to make sure that we address all the concerns of the landowner and what we can of the counties and of the residents and the environmental groups as well.
And I appreciate what you guys have addressed to this point. I think it's a great document. I understand it's not the final. I appreciate the ongoing communication between everybody and the ability to have discussions like this. I do think it's important that we all understand that we are all trying to come at this from a partnership perspective. We'll have expectations that we have to provide as far as infrastructure goes. And I think at the end of the day, we're just trying to be on a better footing to really be able to do that master planning that we talked about. We talked about at the last meeting. They were going through some other utilities master planning as well. And so if we want to do that properly, so we can take into consideration what's going to be happening with the annexation, we just kind of need some of that information. But I think the bones are there to be able to work through that during your planning process. So again, I thank you for the cooperation. I just have a point of clarification for staff. Do you guys need a motion are you asking for a motion to approve a letter with the concerns on this current draft sent to the city, or what's the ask today?
Yeah, great question. I would like some direction on that. Do you want us to send something? I think it would be good to memorialize our questions that we do have, which are just largely, as I've outlined here, and then be happy to meet with city staff to discuss that and do that going forward. Again, this is a factor of timing. They may not have something on December 14th, but if the move forward is on the 14th, this is the last chance for us to get any direction in time to actually do something. So I would prefer that we send basically a brief letter with a couple of issues that we have and offer to have discussions with city staff, and if you'd give us direction on that.
Okay, which is in line with how we have participated in this process all along, is just giving some comments and offering to work through those. So I see no problem with that. I'd be happy to make a motion to direct staff to do such.
Second with discussion.
A motion by Commissioner Adams to send some thoughts and ideas to City Sebastian, second by Commissioner Fleischer. I would ask, just 1 second. I would ask first, Mr. Carlisle, you said basically this is an unfinished document, and that's why you wanted it pulled. I'm going to refer back to staff. Do we need to answer or give clarification on something that they're not ready to submit even to their council or agreement? Maybe I'm missing something here. I don't know.
Council has gotten a copy of this agreement.
Mr. Chair.
Am I missing something here?
May I?
My suggestion would be that we make our comments based on this, knowing that it might change, and some of the things are, there's a question about a definition of utilities in there. That's something very minor that we should, I wouldn't even think we talk about at this meeting, but that would be like a suggestion for like a 3-word change to the item. So some of our comments would contemplate that there might be a change, and there may not be a change because we're not a party to the agreement. It's an agreement between the city and the property owner. We can only comment on what we have, but happy to continue the conversation if there are changes that they're negotiating with the property owner.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would recommend that any comments the county would like to give us, we get them sooner than later.
Okay.
Because if we're going to be working on this agreement and the county has questions, it's going to help us look at those and try to address those if we can, whether you're a party to the agreement or not. If you have ideas, give them to us as we work on the agreement. We may or may not include them. We'll address the county's concerns as we can, but we really would like to have those sooner than later as we're working on this document. We welcome those comments.
I would think it would be more annoying to get them at the end as you've worked through everything and then be hit with them at that point. So agreed, the sooner we can get them to you, the better for your process.
Okay, I'm glad I kind of asked that question because I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on that. I didn't want to send you something that you were just gonna, okay, we're gonna put this into the garbage can. We're gonna start a new one, and we would get a whole new information that we'd have to respond on. We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair.
Anybody else want to comment? Councilman Dodd. I'm sorry.
Well,
Go ahead.
Yeah, first I want to say that I greatly appreciate the kumbaya moment that we have between Mr. Carlisle and the commission. But I want to, the document that's going to come out at the end is going to be drastically different than this document. I can tell you right now. We've got of the 30-page document, we've got 22 pages of red lines.
Hmm.
It's going to be drastically different. I don't agree with Commissioner Fleischer's comments about the home rule challenge on this. And I want to go back on a couple of things and kind of set the record straight, because quite frankly, the release of this document and the document that's going to finally come out on this, we're going to get sued over the two of those. And we're going to be in court over that. So I kind of want to set the record straight for this, okay, a little bit. We're probably going to be in a 164 process with the county over that. So I'd kind of like to set the record straight just a little bit, all right? The email that was transmitted, this document to the county attorney, specifically said that this is a draft document and we haven't negotiated this with the property owner. Back in August when we met and Mr. Brown came to the meeting and Mr. Reingold came to the meeting and myself and Councilmember McPartland got into some probably pretty heated discussions with other council members about whether we should even care what the county thinks. I think some of you can remember that meeting. It was probably the most contentious we've had since the dynamic trio got kicked off the council. And Mr. McPartland and I argued very adamantly that we felt that the county should have input to this process. And I asked Mr. Brown personally during that meeting to provide us the input letter, which he did, very, very judiciously did that. We directed our staff at that meeting to include the county and the environmental groups that were involved, the information we'd received from those groups that were involved in the drafting of this document. In the spirit of that direction, the city attorney felt that once he got to this point that he should share it with the county attorney. And in his sharing of that, he said, and this is interesting, that Paul and Lisa are scheduled to meet Mr. Mass on Wednesday, November 30th. What that means is that on Wednesday, November 30th or the 1st of December, which was ample time for this not to be in your agenda packet, a phone call would have determined whether we could have this done by the 14th or not. That phone call was not received. So it was included in your packet. A draft document that we had done by a land use attorney who probably put things in the document that he felt was necessary, but the property owner did not. The issue about utilities, okay, that's between your utility and the property owner to negotiate. It's not, Sebastian can't tell a property owner to give his water away. Sebastian can say to the property owner, which we have in this agreement, that it's his responsibility. He can't build without county water and county sewer, and it's his responsibility to work with the county to do that. It's up to the county utility to determine in negotiations what that property owner will give up in return for that. City of Sebastian can't mandate that. Just exactly where in our Constitution does it say that we can tell a property owner to give up his water? I think they've had wars in Texas over that. All right? This document should not have been in this agenda, period. It should not have been in this agenda, and it is going to create massive problems for us, the fact that it was. And I consider it almost to be, I don't know, it's not in the spirit of the cooperation that we anticipated as a city council when two of us argued adamantly with three others to make sure that that cooperation continued. All right, I consider it to be almost, I don't know, almost an affront that it was done. It could have very easily not been done. You do not have the responsibility to get involved in the negotiations, which the county commission has done now. You've gotten involved in the negotiation between us and the property owner. I don't know how much of the redlining was because he knew this was going on, okay? And you have, by releasing the initial draft of this document, you've gotten into that discussion with him. And you shouldn't have done that. And so that's my goal here today, to say that this was not something that we intended to be released. It was delivered to the county attorney under the spirit. There is no reason why a qualified attorney wouldn't understand when it says in here it is a draft and hasn't been reviewed with the property owner, that that's not for release. And I'm not Mr. Reingold, I'm not questioning you. I'm just saying that it's no reason why that wasn't understood in this document, that it wasn't ready for release. And so I'm saying this, just from the fact that I'm going to be one of 5 people in Sebastian now fighting with everybody in the world about why that paragraph is not in our final document. And it's going to create a real problem for us in this regard. And you do not need to be involved in that. I still believe that there needs to be cooperation. I have said every time on the campaign trail in this last election, every time, and Joe Fletcher has been in the audience when I've said every time, there is not a problem between the county and the city.
There's not.
That is 2 organizations with 2 objectives, 2 goals, 2 strategic things, and we have to meet ourselves together. Stunts like this create the problems. This reminds me of what they do in Washington, D.C.
Wait a minute.
You can be upset and throw paper all
not a
you
stunt.
want. You can be upset and throw paper all you
No,
want.
I think your choice of words, in all due respect, unfair and inappropriate. And when you state that we have interfered, I want you to know any document that you send to the county, whether it be the attorney, whether it be the chair, whether it be any one of us, a member of staff, is subject to public records
You
request.
have a public records request for this document.
And
You have a public records request for this document.
no, we don't need it.
That's all I'm saying.
We don't need it, but in the spirit of transparent government, it most certainly was more respectful to have this before us. It was sent to us by the city of Sebastian to inform us of what had progressed with the administration. It's more than fair and appropriate. See, we believe in transparent government.
Councilmember Fletcher,
We believe
I believe
in,
government also. I'm just telling you that this was a case in where it did not need to be part of your agenda packet because it was not a finalized document. You didn't need to be discussing it. We don't need a letter from you on this document. It's not the final document. We need a letter from you on the next document. We need your
respectfully
review.
disagree.
Okay, it's that simple. So I'm just telling you that.
I think the citizens have the right
I'm
to understand and see what is happening
Believe
in
me, this is not about
community.
citizen issues. This is about 2 organizational structures. I am 100% understand the responsibility citizens have had. I've met with the neighborhood association leaders. I've met with the Indian River, the San Sebastian River leaders, the Pelican Island Audubon Society leaders, discussing this agreement. I met with those people. All right, so I understand the requirement for citizen input. All right, I do understand that, and I understand the whole thing. And I'm being the bad guy to Mr. Carlisle's good guy, but I'm the elected official. All right, and I'm representing the city's elected body, not at their request, by myself.
Well, not arguing it, I'm just stating that I find it ironic that all of those entities have the understanding and right and sitting down and discussing it, and it's not discussed with the county in good faith in a transparent fashion.
Well, that's the way it is.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dodd, I would tell you that I agree with some of your statements, but I disagree with some. As chairman of this board, nothing was brought to my attention. I never received a phone call from the mayor of Sebastian or from anybody at Sebastian telling me, asking me to support pulling this item without, before the meeting or anything. So to me, for you to say it was a stunt, I think is definitely a wrong thing to say.
Stunt was the
I
wrong
think
word.
it says, let me finish. I said, just like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I think y'all are more than capable of handling your own affairs. We just need to keep abreast, keep an open dialogue, keep talking what we're talking about, and then I went on to ask the question of your city manager, and the county administrator, do we need to even have a motion, what Commissioner Adams suggested, to talk about this? Because if it's not a finished document, I don't want to waste our time and your time on giving you ideas if it's not something that's going to help the situation. We're not here to derail anything or go to court. I don't want to go to 164 and all that sort of stuff. And I think by us talking about it doesn't make that a possibility. I'm no attorney, but I'm thinking we're talking about it, and we want to talk about it in a healthy and prosperous manner. There was no stunt here. I agree with what Commissioner Fleischer said. I think it's an open, transparent. Once that document got sent to us, it's open for us to discuss whether you guys like it or not. So we want to discuss it amongst ourselves to give them any direction with our county administrator leaving. He wants some direction. Our utilities director back there wants some direction in the future. Maybe it is a little early to talk about it, but we want to talk about it in a positive, professional fashion, and we want to help y'all succeed in this. But I received no information from the mayor, from you, from Councilman McPartlin, from your manager, from our county administrator about pulling this item because it may cause problems. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll ask my fellow commissioners if they have any comments.
I think it's been said.
Commissioner Moss?
Yes, I'd like to thank Councilman Dodd for being so straightforward and direct. And by the way, that's what makes for a good relationship, being straightforward and direct. And you can call it anything you want to call it and use any words you want to use, because it disrupts your train of thought when you're stopped and criticized for using any term whatsoever. I think you expressed yourself very well. I don't think we need to give you or at the City of Sebastian any lectures. I don't think we need to send any letters at this point. There is a difference between, as you pointed out, between a document being sent to us, yes, any document, and this is for the community to know, any document that comes to us and a business document is a matter of public record. However, you don't need to raise it up and put it on an agenda. That's a totally different matter. And this is a business transaction that's going on to which we are not a party. So we don't have a reason to be discussing it publicly when it's still in play. That discussion is still in progress. And I think for it to be on the agenda at this point was inappropriate. And thank you for being so straightforward. And it's not adversarial. I appreciate everything you said.
Well, let's say, Mr. Chairman, the word stunt was inappropriate, and I shouldn't have used it. All right, it just kind of flowed through my mind a little bit when I did that. However, I will tell you that curing this once the agenda packet went out, I didn't know it was in the agenda until I received the agenda packet. I'm on the email distribution list for it. I got it Friday. I had no idea it was in the packet until I got that, and I called the city manager immediately when I saw that. Curing it once it went out in that packet was not, you couldn't pull it from your agenda and cure that. You couldn't have done it. When the motion was made this morning, you were perfectly correct to not vote for that motion or not second it. You couldn't have cured this by moving it off the agenda today. It wouldn't have worked. It was already out. And so when the final document is produced, and it's 15 pages instead of 30, and it contains half of the stuff that's in this document, that's where the issue comes to bear. And that's where we in Sebastian will have that problem. That's my point that I'm making here. I'm not trying to challenge anybody's competence or professionalism. If it sounded like that, I apologize, because I'm not trying to do that. I just wanted to set the record straight, that when we sent it in the spirit of cooperation, and we sent it indicating that it was a draft, that we hadn't met with the property owner yet with it. And so once it got out, that's where the problem starts for us, and that's where we have to deal with it. So I'm not here trying to challenge you in any way regard when it comes to that. I know it sounds like that because I'm a pretty direct person, and I really do not soft-spoke the words that I put out. I say what I believe, and it's that simple. I'm not going to play politics with you in any way. I've never done that. I don't think any of you have ever seen me do that. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think we've had a very robust discussion today. There's a motion on the floor. The only thing I would add is when I hear my fellow commissioners try to imply that we should keep things less than open, I start wondering about their advocacy for transparency. So I'm looking forward to Dylan's discussion later on the agenda when it comes to sunshine law and public records. But with that, I would like to just go ahead and call the question.
Absolutely. I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer, with regards to sending information based on the correspondence with regards to this issue. Or Dylan, I don't really know how to make that motion, how to phrase that.
The motion on the floor was simply to have city staff draft a letter consistent with the comments raised on the dais and have that sent to the city of Sebastian.
County staff.
County staff.
County
County
staff.
staff, sorry.
And just for clarity, one of the main points of the letter is that, and I think we're on the same page with Sebastian here, is not all of this stuff from a water and sewer service is necessarily going to be addressed or has to be addressed in the annexation agreement. And we will need to work with the property owner going forward for the provision of water and sewer services. I think we're all on the same page there, but so it's not so much the letter from the county's not going to be, we need this in the annexation agreement. It's, the main point is going to be, we think we've got some details to work out with the property owner going forward, so.
Counselor, you're good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I didn't know if we had an additional person approach the podium.
We have a motion and a second to vote on it, but I'll let you go ahead and say something before we vote.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob McParland, City of Sebastian. I don't worry about my feelings. I worked for the department for 20 years, been elected official for over 10 years. It doesn't matter. I just have, because I see, as Mr. Dodd had mentioned, we're going to get in a lot of trouble with this agreement. One thing I would like to see done is it says in the agenda, the annexation agreement, proposed draft, because people are going to pull us out of the woodwork that are not at this meeting, but there'll be at least 4 of the groups at our meeting saying, you had this annexation agreement. This is a working document. This was kind of like, attorney-client privilege that's not done. And we wanted to collaborate, and we did it. But then again, you're right. Once it's in an email, that's public record. But it wasn't meant for public dissemination. But people are going to look at where it says annexation agreement, that this is the annexation agreement. And this hasn't even been agreed to by anybody yet. It's a working document. It's a draft. But right here it says annexation agreement, and I can tell you there'll be at least 3 people come to the Sebastian meeting pulling out that document, and the final one is going to be completely different. As it was mentioned, 20 pages have been red inked through. It's going to be completely different from this document, but we're going to get people saying, it's fact. It was at the county. Annexation agreement is what it says. So that means any layperson, that's the final agreement. We know it's not, but the people who picked this up say annexation agreement. I don't even see proposed on the attachments or within. So I would just like to see that it says that.
So on the hyperlink, it refers to it as the annexation agreement. I will say, we'll change that to where it says draft annexation agreement. So I apologize for any confusion that's caused. I will say in the agenda item itself, it refers to it as the draft annexation agreement. And the attachment itself has a draft watermark in it that was the way it was when it was sent to us. So it says draft on every page and across the whole page.
We understand that.
Gray line.
Yeah. We understand that. The general public does not understand that. And I went through the previous annexation agreement, and the misinformation that was thrown out there, it's going to continue. But when you have somebody pulls out, and that's what I'm reading right on your agenda, annexation agreement. And so then they're going to say, you guys had one on December the 6th, the annexation agreement. Why is this one different on January 15th or whatever time? That's all.
Councilman Portland, I believe that it may add a little more time or a few more moments to your meeting, because there'll be a discussion on that. But you realize that we cannot interpret public information. We cannot interpret 119. We can't subdue information that's been corresponded to us and decide, well, that may go or not go. You recall I did this for many years with the sheriff's office.
I do kind of understand that, but what's the way that we would do it? We wouldn't share anything with you. And that goes completely against collaboration
Yes.
and transparency. And as Mr. Dodd mentioned, we have been great believers in the whole collaborative effort.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, look, I'm not even getting into that. I don't want to get into feelings, because my feelings don't matter. But this is there, and I'm saying it's going to be, it's going to cause problems. I mean, I don't see any of the members that I can reel them off, who we're gonna be at all this, they come to every Sebastian meeting. Every time you've discussed the
see them.
Sebastian annexation, not a one of them has come here. They all go to Sebastian, and this can cause problems for us. That's all I'm saying. I'm not worried about feelings that got on the agenda, whatever. I appreciate all the work you guys do. I'm gonna continue to work with you no matter what. You guys know that. I'm just saying that's the one thing I would like to see, because it's gonna create a lot of problems for us. That's all.
You provided the
Thank you.
perfect remedy.
I just have to say something about collaboration now.
Go ahead.
I probably shouldn't. We sent a letter with our comments August 31st, had a meeting with city staff on September 15th, have had a couple of emails or calls back and forth, hey, you know, at which we express, hey, could we see the annexation agreement when you get it? Yeah, sure, we'll send it to you. And then nothing until the week before Thanksgiving, and we get an annexation agreement, we want to talk about it, and apparently nobody wants to talk, even though our comments are positive. It seems like I just don't understand. I'll just say that.
All right, let's move on. We have a motion and a second. We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer, per the discussion we had and per the county's attorney approval on the motion. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Carries 4-1 with Commissioner Moss, the dissenting vote. Commissioners, how about we move through 12A and get to stop at the county attorney's matters? We'll take a break if we're okay with that. You okay with that? Let's move on to 12A, request for authorizations to secure a pool located at 560 Stony Brook Farm Court in Vero Beach. And I will turn this over to staff. Mr. Matheson, it's all yours.
Hi, Phil Matson, Community Development Director. Let me introduce Rebecca Guerra, our Chief of Code Enforcement and Environmental Planning, and she's got a remediation of a longstanding issue here that she'd like to present. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Rebecca Guerra, Chief Code Enforcement and Environmental Planning. So the item that we have before you today, okay, there we go, is for property located at 560 Stony Brook Farm Court. As you can see, this is the swimming pool that's associated with that property. Here's an aerial that shows that it's located at the rear of the property. These pictures were taken in 2020 and 2021, and the one previous was taken in October. The property hasn't changed. As you can see, it's filled with algae. It's unfenced with a fence that's approved by the Florida Building Code or with a permit. So let's get some background here. So in 2016, permits were pulled for single-family residents for the pool and for gas lines. And we started receiving complaints as early as 2017 regarding the pool. The inspections identified by staff were an unsecured and unmaintained swimming pool, along with other infractions. The pool was temporarily brought into compliance, but it reverted back out of compliance and additional code enforcement actions was needed. The respondent or the property owner then brought it into compliance. But in 2019, it came out of compliance again and was brought back to the Code Enforcement Board as a repeat violator. The case resulted in a $100 a day fine, but the pool remained unmaintained, that is filled with algae and debris, and unsecured or unfenced. There were further violations that I alluded to earlier, such as overgrown weeds, property maintenance, and expired building permits, all those permits that I had showed you previously, which resulted in an additional $100 a day fine. On October the 24th, the Code Enforcement Board authorized staff to proceed with foreclosure proceedings, and on November 8th, this commission authorized staff to move forward with outside counsel for the filing of that foreclosure. Now, when the Code Enforcement Board heard this on October 24th, it also authorized staff to seek a solution to the unmaintained and unsecured nature of that pool. And they did so under the guise of Florida Statute 162091, which authorizes any Code Enforcement Board to notify via staff its local government agencies or local governing board to go ahead and take action on it and remediate as necessary. The Residential Swimming Pool Safety Act, which was codified in the Florida Residential Building Code, requires pool safety measures for all pools built off after October 1st, 2000. Now, even though the permits were pulled in 1996, Those permits have expired, and part of the building department's comments for those permits indicate that they have to build it up to those standards, and they have to utilize those requirements or those barrier safety measure requirements of this new Safety Act. Safety measures can include items such as pool enclosures, pool covers, doors that are self-closing with a self-latching device, or exit alarms. This is just a small sample of what could be done. The building code goes into more detail, but these are generally the things that are done to keep something, to keep a pool secure. And I'm talking about a private residential pool. The subject pool today is not currently properly secured, and is partially full of water and algae that is unmaintained. So it's unsecured and unmaintained. And those are the two major violations having to do with the pool. So this board has, this didn't save the way that I needed it. So there are two alternatives. The board can take no action. This alternative would result in daily fines continue to accrue while foreclosure proceedings move forward via outside counsel. It, however, would not resolve the unsecured nature or the unmaintained nature of the pool. So you have a second alternative. You can direct staff to seek a court order to enter onto the subject property and resolve the swimming pool's safety and maintenance issues by filling in the pool and erecting a fence. How do we fund this? Staff anticipates that the fencing of the pool and the filling of the pool would cost approximately $12,000. That would be available through the MSTU Road and Bridge and other contractual services account. The current code enforcement fines as of today, December 6th, are $120,670. Those costs, along with any foreclosure monies that we may receive through that proceedings, will more than cover the cost of resolving the safety and maintenance issues. So staff recommends alternative number 2, which is to seek a court order to allow staff to access onto the property to secure and to maintain this swimming pool. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Is foreclosure still in the mix?
Yes, sir.
of this?
That is still moving forward.
It's still in the process?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But in the meantime, basically fill the pool in, secure the pool so somebody doesn't fall in it and say it's safe and all that sort of stuff. But foreclosure is still proceeding. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Fleischer.
I had a question for council. If we take that action and the lien that is imposed upon the fines is basically, and as far as the foreclosure, is second run to the bank. We could more or less anticipate where this is going based on the cooperation of the landowner. In the spirit of public safety, we move forward. I don't want to see a tragic incident happen, and this is a mix and a tractor for that to happen. If we take that action, are we, the citizens of Indian River County, made whole again at the end of the day when if this residence is dissolved?
Certainly through the foreclosure process, our desire is to make the county whole on the liens and fines that are imposed on the property. Obviously, as you stated, our primary issue here is not trying to recover our $12,000 or whatever it is, just trying to make sure no one gets hurt or anything worse than that.
That's correct, and the response did not alter my thought process going into this. I move staff recommendation to request or file for a court order to move this thing forward as swiftly as possible.
Second.
Motion to move staff recommendation?
Yes.
Second by Commissioner Lohr. Commissioners, any further discussion? Anyone from the public you wish to make a comment on the motion before us?
Tom Sullivan, 4187 West 16th Square. I don't come to these that often, but this was like deja vu just now, okay? The last time I was hearing this, Joe got up and represented this guy. Am I correct in that, Joe? Come on.
You're correct.
Okay, thank you. This is like, We're talking about we're going to need 25% more water for the county, which is, I think, a big issue, and we're wasting our time on this. This thing should have been resolved 4 months ago. You know, and I think it's a joke that we talk about stuff like this. A single home needing a fence around a pool, which is causing the neighbors to be embarrassed, which is causing a public safety issue. Just do it. I mean, I'm more worried about the former item than I am about this item. Let's not waste that much time on this.
Mr. Sullivan, I appreciate your input.
Thank you.
I do.
I know you do.
But more importantly is, I don't know if you've ever responded to a loss of life for an open pool.
Have I?
Yes.
Yes.
And so, I don't want to see another one. And
I don't understand your point, Joe.
so we have to put that fence up, but we can't just run on the property and put the fence up.
No, but I'm saying I was here 2 months ago, okay, and someone made a statement that they were going to represent the owner and look into this and resolve it.
Right. It was
And for 2 months, I was concerned, not consciously.
Yeah.
But I think we should have done something 2 months ago. What happened was there was a 2-month delay because someone said they were going to seek the owner and represent him. Now, I don't think anything happened to that effect, did it?
So Tom, I
Did it,
don't
Joe?
think I don't think it was a 2-month delay. My indication here is that we brought something on November 8th.
Yeah.
Right, I think that was the meeting.
It was
I
a few weeks ago.
Okay, so, and it's,
You were here.
I was here, yeah. But I'm just saying, a statement was made, I'll go deal with the owner, I'll have this resolved. Well, now it's,
Didn't happen.
didn't happen, now it's game, set, match.
So now we,
You know,
yep,
bang.
we have
you
to
know,
go
but
forward.
like,
We have to go
How,
forward.
how long do we give this guy to say, I have a house and a few kids can fall in and die?
I think
Okay, I think we agree,
game
Joe.
is over, though.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further comments? Seeing no more comments from the public, I'll call the question here. Commissioners, all those in favor of option 2, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to 12E, Information Technology, Website Publication of Legal Notices. Mr. Russell.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dan Russell, Information Technology Director, and I'm here this morning to follow up on your request for additional information with respect to publishing legal notices and/or official advertisements via the county's website. This was an item that was brought forth as an informational item by the county attorney in October of this year, where Mr. Engel gave us information on the recently enacted House Bill 7049 legislation, which made changes to the ability to publish legal notices and official advertisements via the county's website rather than what has traditionally been done in the, with a general newspaper. So the staff was tasked with looking at options for implementing this and coming back to the board and letting you know what those options are. I'll get to those in just a moment. Before we do that, I'd like to point out that this legislation also contained a provision which, without reading it to you verbatim, essentially allows residents the option of requesting that legal notices and or official advertisements be mailed to them via first-class mail or emailed to them based on whichever method they would choose to register for, right? So in analyzing that, staff looked at the cost of mailing those notices and determined that the aggregate cost is $1.83 per mailing, and that encompasses the metered mail rate, the paper, the printing costs, the envelopes, the labels, and the staff time. So it's roughly $1.82 per mailing. So if we look at our population according to the most recent census, we're at about 163,000. So the quick math on that says that if less than 1% or approximately 1% of the population asks for that mailing, we would be looking at over 1,600 mailouts for each one of those notices. That would roughly escalate to a cost of about $2,982 per advertisement versus the average of $173.80 that we pay today for a one-page legal advertisement. And that average was calculated looking at data from last fiscal year Community Development Department and our Purchasing Division are the two largest advertisers within the community, and we had about $7,700 in advertising costs, and the average cost was $170.80. So just wanted to make sure you're aware of that potential. It's hard to project how many residents would register for that mailing, but certainly some would, and the potential to escalate our cost per advertisement is there. With that said, should the board choose to pursue using the county's website for publishing legal notices, we would advocate for a schedule of a 1 week prior to publication date. So we would receive those requests 1 week prior to the publication date. We would allow copies and changes up to 2 days prior, and then we would recommend advertising a fee of $35 per page, and that represents the cost of approximately 1 hour of our staff time for our digital media technician to perform the actions required by the changes to legislation. So that's, post the copy to the website, provide the owner with affidavit notification that we had done that. The other thing that we would advocate for is that departments be responsible for their own legal notice mailing cost and the preparation of those notices for mailing. That said, our recommendation is to continue to follow our established process of publishing legal notices via local newspaper and our website, which we do today. So all of our legal notices that go out via a local paper are also published on our website. And we would recommend that we continue that practice to avoid the potential of increased costs associated with implementing the new legislation. And just would add to that per my read of what the county attorney provided, the county's not obligated to implement that, the provisions of that legislation. It's just it's an option. So with that said, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Russell?
I'm good.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer to accept staff's recommendation. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion before us? Counselor?
If I just may add, before the board votes on this, I attended the mid-year Florida Association of County Attorneys Continuing Legal Education Seminar just last Thursday. And this was actually one of our topics on our discussion. And I can tell you almost every county did exactly what Dan did on this, which was they went through, they looked at the registry requirements and then realized, oh my gosh, I came up with, I stated basically, it sounds like this was just a poison pill. Inserted into the legislation to defeat the ability for the counties to use the website process, just because all of the counties sitting in the room were basically saying that this is cost prohibitive. This is just going to prevent us from being able to utilize this process. So it will be interesting to see if the legislature takes this up again during the next session to see if there's any tweaks to this legislation.
Thank you, Counselor. Again, we have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer to approve staff recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. I'm going to move our break up. Let's take a 8-minute break. We'll be back here at 11 o'clock.
Get these numbers.
We'll start to go to 12, item 12, item F, under Office of Management and Budget, 12F1, Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund, LATCF, and this will be a presentation given by our Director of Finance, Ms. Kristen Daniels. First of all, you got to tell me where that name came from.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kristen Daniels, Budget Director. Yes, as part of the American Rescue Plan, the Treasury was awarded $2 billion to fund the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. So these funds are going to be made available to any eligible local government in order to provide for any expenses covering just general governmental services. And they have one exception, and that is that we cannot use these funds to fund any lobbying activities. So Indian River County's appropriation under this new funding source is $100,000. The county has received $50,000 so far, with the remaining $50,000 to be dispersed sometime in 2023. The Treasury hasn't released a date yet. So due to the increased need for staffing in the Environmental Planning and Code Enforcement Division, staff is proposing that these funds be used to fund the addition of one full-time planner, one position. The annual cost of this position with benefits is $88,096. So the plan is for that $100,000 in LATCF funding to fund this position. It'll fund it for slightly over a year. After that, the position would continue to be budgeted in the MSTU fund, which is paid for by ad valorem tax proceeds. So this planner one position will assist with environmental permits and inspections, environmental plans and ordinances, code enforcement actions, tree and landscape inspections for all new developments, as well as special projects and miscellaneous development review. So again, staff's recommendation is that these funds be appropriated toward the addition of this new position, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Kristen?
No, I'd be happy to move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to accept staff recommendation by Vice Chairman Adams, second by Commissioner Moss. Anyone from the public you wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that passes unanimously 5-0. 12, F2, American Rescue Plan Act, Spending Plan Revisions. Kristen?
Oh, thank you again. Before you today are a few ARP spending plan revisions that we've had. As the board will recall, the county received $31,063,168 in ARP funding. This funding is to be encumbered by the end of 2024 and fully exhausted by the end of 2026. So today staff is proposing the reallocation of $2,506,413. Last year, the board approved the nonprofit assistance program as well as a small business development grant program. Those two programs have sunset and all of the eligible applications have been funded. And there's a remaining balance of $883,813 in unspent funds between those two programs. In addition, we have remaining funds totaling $1,472,600 from the Fellsmere Inn project. This is a project we're going to partner with IRSC on to provide a satellite campus out in Fellsmere. Unfortunately, Casey Lunsford came before the board this past summer and let us know that the college does not determine this project to be viable anymore. So those funds need to be reallocated, as well as $150,000 in enhanced building cleaning we appropriated at the height of COVID, and obviously we did not end up using those funds. So staff's recommendation today is that the $2,506,413 in unspent funds from those projects be reallocated toward road resurfacing. The funding source for road resurfacing as it currently stands is gas tax, and unfortunately over time with you know, more electric cars on the road and vehicles becoming more fuel efficient, that gas tax is no longer going to be able to support the road resurfacing needs that the county has. So by allocating this additional $2.5 million towards road resurfacing, it's going to allow us to get caught up a little bit and then also accumulate gas tax in that fund for us to be able to use it at a later date going forward.
Any questions, Commissioners? Mr. Moss?
Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm in favor of the road resurfacing. My question is, could some of the funding be used for traffic lights and that kind of thing? As it came up earlier today, Antilles is one place, you know, we need to take a look at. And I'm sure all of us get complaints about accidents recurring at certain intersections, key intersections throughout the county. And I would appreciate it if that's something we could look at and consider using this funding for, to address some of those issues.
Sure. So what I will say is that the Treasury did come out with guidance earlier this year that said that we could use up to 10 million of our allocation towards basically anything we wanted to supplant lost revenue. So that is how we are funding road resurfacing, even though it's not necessarily a COVID-related expense. So to answer your question, I believe that's something that we could certainly do if the board wanted to let us know what amount specifically was to be funded for resurfacing, and then maybe what you all would want to fund with streetlights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would look to staff to take a look at which intersections. I mean, I know I can go through my emails and identify some, but that's not a comprehensive look at it. So, you know, mainly, I guess, the ones where there have been fatalities. And I know there are some intersections where there have been multiple fatalities. And if we can look at those and address those, I think that would be a good use of the money.
My only concern would be that, you know, this is only a $2.5 million reallocation. I don't know how much a particular intersection could cost.
Much more than that.
If those, I appreciate it.
Mr. Burka?
Rich Berger, Public Works Director. Intersections right now are costing about $800,000 a pop for a four-legged intersection. We just put in 66th Avenue and A Street, was right around $800,000. The Antilles intersection that we're talking about, DOT has done multiple studies, signal warrant studies. It doesn't warrant a signal. If we wanted to spend county money to put in a signal, I'm sure we could permit it and just put one in. We can put a signal anywhere. The question is, will it help and is it warranted? From an engineering standpoint, we follow the rules and regulations that FHWA and FDOT have for signals. Signals detract from people moving around on our roadway system. So every signal, we delay traffic moving around. Yes, there are fatalities at some intersections. There's always, even signalized intersections have fatalities. So we follow the rules and regulations and that we look at. You know, if it's warranted, we will put it on the CIE, and that's how we work. If the board wants a signal somewhere, that's just, it's allocation of funding and direction from the board through the county administrator. That's what you want. I go forth and I do what I'm told. But that's how we go. That's how we do signals. There's a process, and that's where we go. So again, it's $800,000 for a four-legged intersection. It costs us $600,000 for the three-legged intersection with a minor signal at Indian River Boulevard and A Street on the other end. So, and costs are going up. I will state that the A Street and 66th Avenue intersection took us 7 months from the day we ordered the mast arms till they were delivered, which was 3 weeks ago. That's the delays we're seeing in materials for these types of projects, on all of my projects. So just, that's how we operate. Any questions?
Commissioners, any question of Kristen or Rich?
How many miles of road can you resurface with the $2.9 million?
right around, I believe we can get about another 15 miles. We paved 21 miles of roadway, 21.4 miles of roadway with the money that was previously allocated throughout the county. It was some of our collector and arterials we did, a lot of subdivisions. We went in subdivisions and paved South County, North County, all over the place. I believe I can get another 15 miles of roadways out of this $2.4 million.
Thank you. That sounds like I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Moss, but I don't think that at this point we should just be picking random intersections. I think that there's a process to vet which intersections need lights. We have a policy related to such. Personally, all over the county, I get complaints about potholes and things of that nature. So this will go a much longer way to address those concerns, and perhaps the lighting we could work into the CIP or CIE, whichever process it is. I get them confused. But I know that we need to move, that there's a time frame that we need to allocate and then expend these ARP dollars. So I would rather see us move forward with this plan, and if we want to talk about lighting, we can do that during the budget process.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, by the way, and I think road resurfacing is a good project. But who would I ask then to find out which is the intersection with the largest number of fatalities in this county? Because I think we should at least address something like that at some point, not, maybe not from this money.
Staff may be able to pull that. I'll have to check. We're part of a statewide organization that keeps all the traffic incidents and that stuff. We may be able to see if there was a fatality, and we can pull that data.
Okay.
It's kept at the University of Florida. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and I'll have staff pull it. If not, MPO, I see Phil lurking in the background over here. So Phil may be able to address that issue.
And I'm assuming you mean a non-signalized intersections, because it could be at a signalized intersection. So I assume your interest is the ones that don't have a traffic signal. Okay.
The MPO does what they call Phil Madsen, Community Development Director, a unified planning work program, and we talk about the things we're going to study over the next 2 years, and we do get federal money for things like that, and maybe we can do a comprehensive intersection safety study in conjunction with the data that Rich collects. So I'll give Brian the good news when he gets back to the office.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions, staff? I'll entertain a motion.
So I'll move staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams to approve staff recommendations, second by Commissioner Moss. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes 5-0. Now on to the highlight of the day with the most stuff he's had on the agenda for quite a while. Counselor, we're at County Attorney Matters, so that's all yours.
Thank you very much, sir. So on October 4th, Commissioner O'Brien had requested a discussion with the board about seeing if we wanted to have an ocean park sort of essentially turned into an off-leash dog park. The board had voted 4-1 at that time to direct staff to study the issue further and also reach out and coordinate with our friends at the town of Indian River Shores about the issue, as 2 of the parks that were on the list were actually located within the town of Indian River Shores. Since then, per the board's direction, staff has met with the town, who expressed concerns about using one of the parks within the town limits. At the board meeting, Commissioner O'Brien also brought up using Amber Sands beach access. If the board wishes to use a location within the unincorporated area of Indian River County, the board would have to make a change to the code, specifically section 302.05, and therefore allowing for dogs off leash or without restraints, as is required under our code. County Attorney's Office today simply just seeks guidance from the board as to whether you want us to continue researching this issue, whether you want to keep moving forward and studying the issue. Just trying to, we responded to the direction we were given back in October, and certainly now seek further guidance from the board as to what the board wishes from here. So with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Commissioners, your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I think with the
Commissioner Laurel.
Yes, sir. The feedback that I believe each and every one of us has received from the public, whether it be letters, whether it be emails. We answer to the public. The public has clearly spoken on this issue. I move that staff no longer investigates off-leash or unrestrained dog parks.
Second. With discussion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr to end discussion on any further dog park matters at this time. Do I hear a second?
Second, yes.
I have a second by Commissioner Fleischer. I will now, you have a comment too? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a lifelong family pet member. I choose to do that, and I love dogs. And a well-trained dog is an invaluable addition to the family. Unfortunately, dogs have instincts. Well, fortunately, too. And we can't predict them. We can't prevent them from acting on instinct. And that was my primary concern from the very inception of this, that we may be looking at an unintended consequence. But I was able to support staff looking at options. Perhaps maybe there was an option out there that we weren't aware of. But at this juncture, I don't believe that there is a safe, viable option for the envisionment of a unleashed dog park on the sand. Thank you.
Vice Chairman Adams.
Sure. So I was approached several months ago by, and this is separate from Commissioner O'Brien's bringing this up, but by some of my constituents in the Roseland community who were interested in exploring options for a dog park. I know that they have talked with staff and have worked through some of that process. I respect everybody's opinion up here, and I can understand how you have arrived where you have. That being said, I just find it very ironic that Indian River Shores is very concerned about this when they allow dogs on their beach until 7, from sunrise to 7, and then from 5 to sunset, and that our original discussions were to open up one of our beach access points within Indian River Shores to coincide with their already current in action on the books ordinance that would allow this. So I was very surprised at the pushback, considering you can go to the beach in Indian River Shores currently through their Beachcomber Lane beach access and enjoy a beach dog park before 7 in the morning and after 5 at night. I believe that's anybody in the county, provided they get a license to do so, pay a fee, get a tag. So I viewed this as just piggybacking on what they were already currently allowing. Again, like I said, completely taken aback at, maybe I shouldn't be, but completely taken aback at the pushback that the residents who already enjoy this option for themselves within the town of Indian River Shores had to, I guess, non-residents coming and enjoying the same thing on county-owned beach property. Then we switched to perhaps looking at Treasure Shores or Ambersand. We've received some input from the North Beach Civic Association in regards to that. And I can respect their position as well. But, you know, at the end of the day, everybody in the county contributes in some manner to the beach, and everybody should be able to enjoy it. And it's a little frustrating when things get blown completely out of proportion related to sea turtles, and I think red tide was brought up in some of the emails because of dog excrement. I really think that that's an extreme argument, maybe a little unrealistic. But that being said, I know where my fellow commissioners are. I can already count those votes, so I will not belabor this, but I will not be supporting the motion.
Commissioner Moss?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. One of the things, I did visit some of the beaches in the interim, and one of the problems with the current ordinance referenced by our vice chair is that enforcement is a real problem, because you're allowing dogs on the beach currently, and this is in the town of Indian River Shores, for just a couple of hours a day, some hours in the morning, some in the evening, and people don't necessarily follow those rules. And what I've heard is that there's already an existing enforcement problem with that. That being said, back on October 4th, it was a 4-to-1 vote. I voted against directing staff to even investigate the idea, and that was before the onslaught of emails. I'm so happy that so many people agreed with what I was thinking. But the reason for it, and this has come out, different people have stated it, that, there are many issues. At the time, I was thinking mainly of environmental issues, but there also is the matter of public health, and we had emails in that regard. And it's hard to say this discreetly, but what is left behind by the dogs, even if you're cleaning it up, so to speak, I received comments from people, well, my grandchildren ended up walking through that, and they got sick, and so there are serious public health issues at large here, and also issues of public safety, because some dogs are fine, and other dogs, it's questionable. And of course, it's a matter of size too, that the dog can be intimidating to people who are just using the beach, trying to relax, and have, large dogs, running around. So there was that issue. And I do believe that the environmental issue, I mean, yes, we can poo-poo it, so to speak, and say, oh, well, it's not that much, and yeah, it'll get washed away. But oh, geez, we spend so much time, on the lagoon and worrying about the environment. I mean, to add to it in any way, to me, is just unpalatable. I can't abide by that. So I'm happy that this will put an end to it, and I think it's the right resolution. Thank you.
No, I factored in a lot of things when I made the decision to include our vacancies in our animal control positions, the liability, the exposure that I think the county could be exposed to. So it wasn't a split-second decision. It was well thought out of. So thank you.
Commissioner Fleischer, anything else?
Nothing further, sir. I believe you're going to call the question.
I will. I'm going to express my comments real quick. There's probably nobody that's a bigger dog lover than myself. I got 2 golden retrievers at home, and I could bring them into this room and tell them to sit right over there by that light and not move a muscle for 2.5 hours, and they would have sat there and done such. People friendly, all that sort of stuff. I understand some of Commissioner Fleischer's comments. I can't disagree. They're still an animal. They still react differently in different situations with regards to other animals and people. So that is a concern. My biggest concern with this was, first of all, trying to do something in another jurisdiction with regards to Indian River Shores. Us trying to, even though we have a park there, it's within the city limits, of us trying to do something that we would have to stay within their purview and within their city ordinances. And that was a concern to me. So, you know, we talked about Ampersand. That was probably not a good choice. Treasure Shores would probably be the only one, because it's not a vastly used or beach. It's probably one of the slowest beaches we have in the county. You could do a lot of things. You could, you know, put signage up, which you'd have to. You'd have to change the code, which is something else we'd have to do, so on and so forth. With that, that caused a lot of staff time and work, and it does seem the overall feeling of this was to not do it, even though I think some dogs out there in the world would be very happy to be on the beach and run on the beach and stuff like that. I do think some of this was, as Commissioner Vice Chairman Adams said, I think some of it was overblown with proportion of what was recommended here. I want to hope that it was just the fact that it was, you know, us doing a park in another municipality. I do think it was taken a little far by some things, but I respect the public's input on this, and I think it's important. I would like to see us investigate this further with Treasure Shores to see what goes on, because and we spoke to some commissioners in other counties this past week, and some counties have had no problem with this whatsoever. I find that very rewarding. Some have had no problem with this that do have beaches and do have sea turtles, and you know, I love sea turtles too, but I don't think it's a big a problem as we're making it out to be. But I again, I think I see, I'm like Vice Chairman Adams, I think I see where this is going. So it's probably best not to tear up staff time on this and burn up staff time investigating this further right now. But to me, it's not something that we couldn't investigate further and maybe bring it back at another time with maybe a little more information as to what we want to do, because I think it has been kind of brought out of proportion. So with that, I'll open it to the vote. We have a motion by Commissioner Lohr thank you. Anybody from the public wish to discuss this, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then we'll take a vote after we hear your comments.
Yes. My name is Tuck Farrell, and I used to live next to Ampersand Park, and there were huge problems with dogs. Sheriff Lohr, if he recalls, the Sheriff's Department was there all the time with different problems, but dogs were a big part of the problems. It was just a nightmare. I lived next door to the park, and it was just a huge problem. Now, I'm a dog person. I don't have a dog right now. But I had a Bernese Mountain Dog. It's my favorite dog, big dog. But I'd literally have had some real problems with the dogs. They get defensive when you're walking down the beach or something. I understand that. But the people in Treasure Coast, I mean, that Treasure Park, they let their dogs run, and they run even a half a mile or mile down the beach. They run down to Windsor. And I have literally had to defend myself at least twice from dogs coming out of that park. Wow. And I had trouble at the other park before this. But I've moved. I'm right near Windsor. I bought my family's home there. And I moved from Ampersand down near Windsor. And my wife and I, in the last 6 months, we've had 2 attempted, actually attacks. And I carry a staff to protect myself on the beach because people let those dogs go. It's not like the park here. My son lives near the park downtown in the city. And the people have the dogs on leashes or let them go, but they're near them and monitoring the dogs. But these dogs just run loose. And then, and their owners may be a half a mile away. And that's the problem I've had. These dogs are just loose and their owners aren't around. And then they don't even come to your help. But, you know, I think if I hadn't been in the Army and been able to defend my wife and I, it could have been a real problem. But there are some problems with dogs on the beach because they're not supervised. So just generally in Ambersand and Indian River Shores, living there, we've had problems with unsupervised dogs, and the owners are not around. They just let them run, and that's the problem. So it's a safety issue, and it could be a big lawsuit for the county or something. Now, people are still sneaking dogs in, and even where their signs are. But if you permit a beach, it's going to be heavily, heavily used with dogs. It'll be the only one. And they're coming down to Windsor. And the Windsor people, I'm president of the North Beach Civic Association. I'm sorry, I neglected to mention that. I've gotten so many calls about this, more than the beach restoration. I'm getting so many calls from homeowners in Indian River Shores and other places. People are really upset about this issue. In my neighborhood, it's a really big deal. And they asked me to come here today to speak to you because it's a big deal for our neighborhood. And our neighborhood is a large area. We've got hundreds of people in the North Beach Civic Association. Hundreds and hundreds of members. And a large portion of these people are upset about this dog thing. And I didn't speak at the last thing when they spoke about Indian River Shores because I let those people go. And there were so many other issues. But I was asked to come to this meeting, and I was asked to speak. And I'm not just doing it for myself. We've had other people with complaints and problems. And yes, it's in the Archie Carr Sea Turtle Preserve, and the sea turtle people are not happy with this. There's been predation. I go to all their meetings. So it's not a simple deal. Environmentally, it's not so great. I mean, there's waste from the dogs, but the sea turtle deal is a big deal because they dig up. These dogs are just let go. That's the problem. It's a big area there, and they're let go, and they don't stay just in that park. You can't keep them in the park. If you want to fence the park and just have them there, you'd have a safer situation, but it would be up to the people in the park. But these dogs are going all over the place, and they're going down to Windsor. They're going down to Windsor. I see them. And I've had this problem right near my house. I live next door to Windsor. I'm not in Windsor. I live next door to it. And I've had this problem right in front of my house with these dogs. And some of them are the kind of dogs that I would think would be friendly. But when they're trying to protect a territory and their person is somewhere else and they're walking somewhere on the beach, they may protect that territory. And that's what I think I'm running into. They're protecting this territory, and they're protecting their owners, which are not even close by. But they start barking at you, and they come they start to attack you. And I mean, you really have to raise a staff and keep them away from you. And this has happened twice. And I really have experienced it. So we would just ask that you think about the public and think about the property owners. And it's better to have a controlled dog park where they're just not let loose on the beach. You need a smaller controlled area like the one downtown. But letting these dogs just loose, it just doesn't work. There's no supervision, and they don't know what they're dealing with. And they start protecting their territory. That's what I'm telling you. They're just let loose. And that's the problem. And that's what we've experienced, and I've experienced it twice. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Anybody else wish to speak? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kim Salmon, and I'm a resident of Roseland. Do you need my address? I'm not sure how this goes. 8150 133rd Place, Sebastian, Florida. I am the one that brought this to the table, and my suggestion was Treasure Shores, as it is a less populated beach by far over and above all the other beaches. As I'm sure you're aware, a large percentage of your constituents own dogs. And those of us that do go to the beach, and hello, we do go to the beach, whether you like it or not, are responsible owners. And I am a Florida resident. I was born and raised in Palm Beach County. I have been to all of the beaches my whole life, and I have never once, and I am sorry for those that have, been attacked by somebody's dog. That, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying most of the people that bring their dog to the beach are responsible dog owners, and they don't bring vicious dogs. If I owned a pit bull, which I have owned in the past, I would never once think of taking my dog to one of those beaches. Never. I never took him in public. My dog was always in my yard. I knew that was a vicious dog, or could potentially be a vicious dog. That being said, as Commissioner Adams brought this up, this has been blown out of proportion. I did meet with staff, and the proposal was going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, to bring this, the Indian River Shores beaches are designated dog beaches if you get your permit. The only problem is that the county owns the boardwalk, which is the only access to the beach, and the sign clearly states no dogs. So my question is, I would like, and I think the general public would like, clarification. If we can legally go to Indian River Shores Beach as a county resident and get the permit, how do I get my dog on the beach if the county boardwalk says no dogs allowed? So there's a conflict here, and it was a simple resolution. I met with county staff, and it was a simple resolution: take off no dogs allowed and leave it as dogs allowed. If it's under the jurisdiction of Indian River Shores, then it's under the jurisdiction of Indian River Shores. So I'm only here to ask for clarification. And I would like you to reconsider Treasure Shores. And I have never once seen a dog dig up a turtle nest. Not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm not there to monitor it all the time. But I will tell you, bobcats do, and there's bobcats everywhere. So please reconsider this. I am not the only county resident that has a dog that is interested in going to the beach legally. So please reconsider. I am not the only person that I am sure you got emails from. I hope you have emails from other people that we're in favor of. It seems to me as though the beachside people don't want the county residents on their land. And guess what? I pay taxes too. I actually own a lot of property in this county. I pay taxes. So please, please reconsider this and give direction. If I can legally go to Indian River Shores, but the parking lot says no dogs allowed, how do I get my dog on the beach? I want to legal, it's a valid question.
It is.
Okay.
Counselor?
So, let me answer it this way. Within our, within the county park, we do not allow dogs. So regardless of whether it's in Indian River Shores, City of Vero Beach, unincorporated area, there are no dogs allowed. So you wouldn't be able to utilize our park as an access to the beach with a dog. Now, I will tell you, I have a Indian River Shores permit for my dog to be allowed on the beach. And I'm sure Indian River Shores isn't happy with me just advertising this, but my wife and I occasionally drive down to and park on the street by Town Hall. We walk down Beachcomber, and we just go down the Beachcomber entrance, and we're on the beach.
Can I speak?
Sure.
So Indian River Shores, in their document, states that your beach access for the dogs is Sea Grape, Turtle Trail, and I think it says something about 6 miles north of Tracking Station. So they're saying these are our beach access points, but the county, I guess, owns the parking lot. I'm not sure. I don't understand how all of this works. But I was given a map with my permit. These are the beaches you can go to. So I don't understand. Is it only for people that live on the ocean that can take their dog to the beach in Indian River Shores? Or is it for the general public as long as you get your permit? And regarding the permit, I believe, and I'm not 100% sure, the permit is if you want to go during off-leash hours. You can, I believe, take your dog any time of day to the beach, but if you want to be there for off-leash hours, the permit is for that. Now, I might be misinterpreting that, but...
Ma'am, I will tell you, I don't like to interpret other cities and their ordinances and resolutions. If you want to talk to the town of River Shores to get clarification on their ordinance and resolution, I welcome you to reach out to the town on that issue.
So again, how do we get our dog on the beach? You're using Beachcomber Lane? Or we're not allowed to use Turtle Trail or because the county owns those boardwalks? What is the resolution here? I want to do it legally and I have a dog permit. So do other county residents. How do we get on the beach?
If you have a dog permit in Indian River Shores,
Yes, ma'am.
you would have to access the beach through Indian River Shores Public Beach Access,
Which is,
Beachcomber Lane.
okay. All right. Very
Sea
good.
Grape and Turtle Trail is county beach access, and we do not allow dogs at this point through there.
Okay. Could you also please reconsider Treasure Shores? Please do not let this issue die. Your constituents all vote for you, all of you. And we do want, there's lots of beaches. And as was stated, Treasure Shores is not that populated of a beach. There's no residents for quite a distance. We don't want to disturb the homeowners. I understand they paid millions of dollars for their beachfront homes. I'm not a millionaire, but I still have a right to use the beach. Okay? Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the matter? Yes, ma'am, your name and address for the record.
Jeannie Soul, 11280 South Indian River Drive, Sebastian. I don't live on the beach either, but I use the beach a lot. And the beach I use happens to be usually Treasure Shores and some of the areas around there. I use it because it is quiet, but I can tell you it is used, and not just by beach walkers. Every morning, you have a lot of retirees that bring their chairs down, their blankets down, and they're setting up for the day. So it is utilized. I want to speak for all beaches. I don't think dogs should be allowed. I love dogs. I have owned dogs almost all of my life. So I'm not against dogs, but I am against them on the beach. You've heard about the sea turtles, and I know you think it's blown out of proportion. I used to volunteer with the sea turtles down in Juneau Beach. I have witnessed on the Jupiter Beach, where dogs are allowed, digging up the nest. It is real. And to see it and see the eggs exposed and then try to even talk with the dog owner to say, hey, you know, in the morning, the smells are there. The dog's nature is going to be to dig it up. Dog owners don't like us saying that. Another thing to consider, not just that they're digging up, when the hatchlings are coming out in the morning, I have witnessed and waved my arms many times at the dogs carrying the hatchlings off. So the sea turtles, being endangered and threatened species, is something we need to consider in any kind of decisions. I also want to speak on the shorebirds. I volunteer with the shorebirds also. And winter especially is a big stopover for a lot of threatened shorebird species. And for those that do go to these beaches, something like Treasure Shores, where you don't have as many people, you will have willets and terns. Even right now, the one gull that I can't think of the name because I'm nervous up here. But you have a lot of birds. And after a storm, you have the seabirds that are coming in to rest. They can't fly anymore out at sea. There's been a big storm. So they're coming to rest. And when you see a dog flush any of these groups, it is harassment of these species. They really need to rest, even if it's in a footprint of a human. And every time they have to flush because a dog is chasing them, and then they land back and the dog chases them, this is energy that they just had to spend when they should have been spending it foraging on the shoreline. So I do think the wildlife should be considered. We have a beautiful dune system. I don't know if it's the Habitat Conservation Plan that Indian River County has, but our dune system's beautiful, and it is habitat for a lot of wildlife. And then again, the safety, the health concerns are real. I lived in Jupiter. I know what it's like to be chased by the dogs. Dog person, usually it doesn't scare me, but I was on Treasure Shore, like the one gentleman said, and there are dogs that run, and the owners are not nearby. It's a little scary as they're running up to you. And so as you see senior citizens setting up their blankets and the children that are at all of these beaches, even the smaller ones, we do have to think safety. My daughter visiting Thanksgiving had the luxury of stepping in feces right there on the beach as she's actually picking up trash. So it's real, and I thank y'all for considering all those things.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Any further comments from staff? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lohr to move this discussion to an end and have staff no longer further investigate it, and a second by Commissioner Fleischer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-2 with Commissioner Vice Chairman Adams and myself dissenting. All right, on to the next one. Counselor, 13B, Government in the Sunshine Law update.
All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to provide this update today. So when we talk about government and the Sunshine Law, we're kind of talking about two separate concepts. One is the Sunshine Law, which applies to our meetings. And then the second is the Public Records Law, which pertains to our stuff. So with regards to the meetings, it basically provides right of access to the public to be able to view what the government is doing and make sure it's happening in the sunshine. And so the three basic requirements to the Sunshine Law: one is that there be notice, two, people have an opportunity to attend, and then three, that there be minutes. And all three are really important sort of legs to the concept, because if you have two of the three, it's never going to work. So if there's no notice, then no one's going to know to come to a meeting and even know that it happened. If you have notice that there's a meeting and you have the ability to have minutes of what happened, but you can't attend, then that doesn't really feel open to the public. And then finally, let's say you know the meeting's going to happen, you know you have the ability to attend, and you can't make it. And if there are no minutes taken, then you really have no idea what happened at the meeting. So all three of those prongs are really critical to having full and fair and open opportunity for the public to know what's happening in the sunshine. And so when we talk about the Sunshine Law, there are, again, three elements to it. It's two or more members of the same board talking about something that they may reasonably, foreseeably become before that board. And so I like to always break them down in those three separate issues. So the first one sounds pretty simple. It's two or more members. So someone would envision that it's simply Council Member A talking to Council Member B and about an issue may reasonably, foreseeably come before them. And I think that's pretty obvious to everybody. But I think another thing that kind of lets sometimes people don't realize is there's a potential for a conduit issue. So for instance, Councilmember A or Commissioner A may not talk directly to Commissioner B, but if there's sort of a go-between between them who's sending the messages or signals between them, hey, this is how Commissioner A is going to vote, just wanted you to know, just want to let you know Commissioner B plans to make the motion, really appreciate you seconding that, then that other person outside the sunshine is essentially carrying on the conversation between the two, and thus the two commissioners in that story are violating the sunshine. They're not talking to each other directly. They're not maybe on the same room, may not be on the phone together, but clearly the information is being passed through somebody else. And so I always just warn folks that there's the conduit issue with regards to the two or more members. The second aspect is same board, and this happens a lot. So it's got to be the same board. So if you think about it, if there's an advisory board that a commissioner isn't on or isn't liaison to, and that person wants to talk to you as a commissioner about an issue that's coming out of Beach and Shores, for instance. So let's say someone at Beach and Shores, like Tuck Farrell, who was here earlier, wants to talk to Commissioner Adams about some issue that's happening. They're not both on Beach and Shores. They're not both involved in Beach and Shores. That'd be fine. Different board. Also, if it's somebody here at Indian River County wants to talk to the City of Vero Beach council member, generally it would be okay. Obviously, you got to be concerned. Are you both on MPO together? Are you both part of maybe Treasure Coast Planning Council together? So you always have to think of, hey, we're not on the same board, but maybe you are. So you always have to think about how those communications are happening. And then finally, just talk about, you can't talk about stuff that may reasonably foreseeably come before the board. And so that regards, you can always talk about your kids, going to church. College football seems to be a big thing right now. Commissioner Flesher may not be interested in as much, but certainly those may be subjects that we're not going to be voting on. And so those are certainly fair game. So if you see yourselves at Publix, or, you know, with one of your fellow members and you want to mention that, you know, you saw the kids the other day, or how's things in school, or can't believe Alabama got snubbed, totally acceptable. And so I just kind of lay those out as sort of the three prongs of things to be concerned about. Sort of pitfalls I always like to talk about. Be careful when you hear yourself saying these comments. Hey, this has really been a long discussion. Why don't we talk about it after the meeting? You're basically signaling to the world that you're probably going to continue the discussion that should be happening in the sunshine to another place. If you're hearing yourself in your mind saying, oh, let me go talk to Commissioner X about that, or I'm going to plan to talk to Commissioner X about that, again, as long as it's about your kids, church, the college football playoffs, you're good. But if it's about something that may reasonably foreseeably come before this board, probably want to have some pause on that issue. One of my favorite parts of it is the creating the public record of the Sunshine Law violation. So I always caution Facebook, social media, those types of things. Always be careful, always be cautious of those things, because you potentially could be having what needs to be a Sunshine Law discussion online, and then you've essentially preserved a record of the violation. And so those are just some comments about Sunshine Law in terms of things to be concerned about, things to keep in mind. I'm always here. So please, by all means, always use me as a research. Always come talk to me if you even think there's a Sunshine Law issue. As we've seen in our community, we've had council members from one of our municipalities end up in court over these types of issues. And so it's important to keep them in mind and be transparent. With regards to the public records law side of it, the definition of public record is extremely broad. I always read this just because it's so extensive. A public record is defined under Florida law as meaning any documents, papers, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, films, sound recordings, data processing software, or other material regardless of physical form, characteristics of means or transmission. So it's metadata. It's everything. If it's got to do with public business and it's made or received by the entity about public business, it's most likely going to be a public record. And so some of the keys there, and I like to give this story a lot when I give this presentation, is it's what it's about is the key. And I give this story all the time, and I'll give it again. So I'm walking down the hallway. I realize I'm going to Publix after work today, and I'm like, oh my God, I better email Heather and see if there's something else she needs. So get on my phone. Hey, baby, I'm going to Publix after work. I'm picking up some blueberries and almonds. Is there anything else you need? XOXO, push send. And later realized, oh my gosh, that came from my ircgov.com account. I've got this, public record of me emailing my wife about what I'm doing at Publix. And in reality, as you can tell from that, there's no aspect of public business going on. It's simply about, hey, what groceries do I need to pick up after work? So regardless of the fact that it came from my ircgov.com account, it's not a public record. And so honestly, and not that I would do it, but if someone did a public records request for me saying, I want all of Dylan Reingold's emails sent today to and from anybody about anything, I arguably wouldn't have to turn over that record because it's not public record by definition. I probably would. The person would probably laugh. But that's just sort of the sense of that. The issue is not that it came from the ircgov.com account, but what it was about. And the complete opposite of that is equally entirely true. So let's say it's a weekend and I'm driving around town and I notice this huge pothole. And I'm like, oh my gosh, someone's got to know about this. So I pull over side of the road, send an email out to Public Works Director, like, Rich, you got to get someone on this right away. My whole car would have fallen into this pothole. And I send it and I realize, oh my God, it came from my Gmail account. Well, maybe if it came from my Gmail account, maybe it's not a public record. Well, it is a public record. It had everything to do with public business. And just because it's from a Gmail account doesn't make it's not a public record. And so, again, to reiterate the story, it's about what we're talking about. is the key. And so to resolve that issue, it's very simple for me just to flip my Gmail email to myself at ircgov.com account, and now we've got the ability to store and preserve that record. But I tell that story because it impacts text messages, social media, and everything else. And so with regards to text messages, I always warn people, I recommend text messages be very cursory, just very short. Hey, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. Hey, we'll see you in a bit. I'll be there soon. Those types of messages that are transitory are acceptable for text messages. I highly discourage anything that's substantive in nature beyond your text messages, because you're going to have to preserve them. You're going to have to make sure you provide them over to the county in the event that we have a public records request regarding text messages. And I can tell you, I've gotten them before. And, I want all of Dylan Rengel's text messages from X date to Y date. And I've gone through my phone, taken screenshots, flipped them to the IRC folks, so that we've preserved them. And so now it's not to say that you can't ever use text messages for substantive issues. There may be a need for it to absolutely happen. So I may be having a discussion up here and Susan Prado standing in the back hears me say something and she's like, oh my God, that's not true. I better text Dylan right away. She knows if she sends it to me by an email, I'm probably not going to notice it. But if I get a text and it pops up, I'm like, oh, I'm glad Susan just told me that Florida statute X has been stricken today or changed by the legislature last week. But it's one of those, just be cautious about text messages. Social media is the same way. Try not to use social media, Facebook pages or the like for any sort of public business. Keep them about your families, keep them about your, social stuff that's happening. But it really becomes the onus becomes on you if you are starting to utilize a Facebook page or some sort of social media outlet, because you're going to have to preserve those records. You have to be cautious about, be cognizant of, I can't block somebody if maybe they say something I don't like. And so those things can really get out of control pretty quickly. So that's always warn people about text messages and social media. I will also state drafts, and we've talked a lot about drafts today. Drafts, even if you put a watermark on it, that's a public record if you shared it with somebody. And so if I send something to Jason and Michael Zito and Susan Prado, and I'm like, hey guys, I want you to review my staff report before I load it into Granicus, boom, it's a public record, even if it says draft on it. And so you just have to be cognizant of those things because someone could do a public records request. Verbal requests are okay, happens all the time. Someone picks up the phone, I'd like a copy of this. I can't make them put it in writing. I can't make them tell me who they are. I can't ask why they want it. The public has a right to those things without having to answer those types of questions. We have a reasonable amount of time to respond to public records requests. If it's the type of thing before this meeting, someone asked for a copy of the agenda, I probably should be able to provide it to them pretty quickly. But if someone asked for every single public record that is contained within the county attorney's office, it's probably going to take a little while for us to produce that. And so it's a reasonable amount of time under the statutes. And then one other thing I will note is I love this book. Government in the Sunshine Law Manual. You'll see it's the 2022 edition. The Attorney General's office produces this book every year. They are very nice to send me a copy and one for all the attorneys in our office. I keep this by the side next to my phone because I grab it all the time. But I will note that it's available online, free, at the Attorney General's website. I always welcome you to take a look at it, reference it. I obviously welcome you to talk to me first as well, or to bounce an idea off me like, hey, I saw this, just wanted you to know I was wondering about this. But it's just an important research for the public, for anybody in reality. So I think that covers Sunshine Law and public records law. I will add one other thing that's interesting about the dynamic, and it kind of plays into the Sunshine Law issue. Under our code, we do have a provision about board employee relations, and it simply says that neither the board nor any of its members shall in any manner dictate the appointment or removal of any county employee, nor shall the board or any of its members give orders or directions to any county employee. And the reason why I say that it relates to Sunshine Law and it's critical is county administrator, myself, county directors, department directors, and staff, we really hear from the board as a whole, and we have to react, respond, put what your directives are as a group into play, and hopefully accomplish those things and make this board successful. if you've got multiple board members who are kind of angling for slightly different things and trying to give direction to staff on those things, it makes it very difficult for staff to understand how the resources are going to be put into play. They may be almost at odds with maybe something the board's already approved, or they may be odds differently between the commissioners. That's why we always really appreciate it when commissioners bring an item to the board and say, hey, I'm just seeking direction today to authorize the county attorney or authorize the county administrator to research this issue, so that we know that we've gotten 3, 4, or 5 board members to research the issue, and we know how to follow what the board's guidance is. And it just doesn't set up awkward scenarios between staff members and the county departments and the county administrator and myself. So that was a lot of me lecturing about the Government and Sunshine Law and Public Records Law. I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining to those things. And so with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Counselor. And Commissioners, any question of the county attorney?
I have a question.
Vice Chairman?
I have a question. Just for clarification, is it a public record when the item is requested by somebody outside the organization, or when it's created by the organization?
So the public records law is sort of a two-way issue. So it's made or received by the governmental entity. So I may draft something up and then send it out, and that's a public record. Someone could send us something, and that could be a public record. So somebody emails the county and says, I'm interested in the county researching X issue. And as long as it's about county business or something we could take action on or something related to the county, then yes, I would deem that to be a public record.
What about meeting notes?
Meeting notes. So my position on this has been, if it's something that I take for notes for myself, I don't share it with anyone. I'm not using it to perpetuate anything. And I'll give the example, and I say this all the time. I walk around with a pad in my hand all the time. I just think that's what attorneys need to do. So I walk around with this all day. And I just write little notes to myself like, hey, you need to make sure I get X done, cross it off. I never share it with anybody. I don't show it to anybody. I've never gone through them in response to a public records request. I just deem them notes to myself that I've never shared.
Okay. And then my last question, or for clarification, is the public record relates to the subject, not the medium through which the subject is conveyed, correct?
Absolutely. Again, back to I sent something by Gmail that had everything to do with public business. It's a public record. I sent something by ircgov.com. It has nothing to do with public business. It's not a public record. Now, there may be discovery. People may be thinking there may be an investigation about the county attorney and over excessively emailing his wife about going to Publix. And so there may be some litigation, and I may have to give those documents as discovery and litigation, but they're not public records.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, for Mr. Reingold, it's been my experience in the past, if a public record request comes in and it's about a particular topic that you do not have a public record on, in other words, we are not in the business of creating how many shark bites were wherever, whatever have you. So keep in mind that we don't want the public to think that we're not working for them, but if they make a request, it's not like we're going to instruct staff to go make a record just because they want it. If we don't have it on file, we don't have it. And the response in my past was, sorry, we don't have any documentation of that.
And Commissioner, absolutely right. I want to make 2 points about that and be very clear, because your first point is very important. We do not need to create a record in response to a public records request. If one does not exist, that's a very legitimate answer. So someone does a public records request for a list of everybody who attended our meeting today. I just don't think we have that list. We don't have a sign-in sheet. We don't collect speaker cards. The response to that is simply just we don't have a record responsive. Now, there's a slightly different caveat to that, though. I do want to make sure it's very clear. If it's an FDOT thing that FDOT studies, or if it's something that the city of Vero Beach studies and they create reports, and they send us those reports, and someone asks for it, the answer isn't, oh, no, go to the city of Vero Beach for that report. We don't create them. If they ask for the report and we have it, it's our responsibility to turn it over to them. So, hey, I'd like a copy of the FDOT XYZ report, and we know that we get it every year from FDOT. The response to me is not go ask FDOT for it. It's, oh, here's a copy of the thing that FDOT sends us every year.
You good?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Nobody else? All right.
Thank you for the.
Anything else you need with regards to this, sir?
Oh, I just like to give an update. Oftentimes I do it in the context of inviting all the employees to different seminars. I just hadn't done that in a little while, so I just figured I'd utilize this as an opportunity.
Okay, we'll move on to 13C, resolution for adoption of administrative fee for extensions, modifications to contracts for required roadway improvements under section 312.11 and section 312.11 performance security of the Indian River Code of Ordinances. Counselor.
Actually, I'm going to let Susan handle this one.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Do like your tie there, Mr. Chairman. I think it's festive. All of you have festive colors on today. How wonderful. So today I'm coming in front of you to kind of get a little bit of consistency in a couple different resolutions that we have. So in our code under 312.11, performance security, we are required to collect a form of security, and we also have a contract that goes along with that form of security that's collected. And previously, this board has actually given permission for and I'm sorry, I believe it's not the Public Works Director, but the Community Development Director to go ahead and sign off on extensions on this so long as the Public Works Director has given their okay. And what this is an extension for a contract for this work in the right-of-way to be done. So what will happen, for example, and this actually just came up recently, and this is why I'm bringing this to your attention, is we've had a developer come in and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to complete my work in the right-of-way in time because whatever is on backlog and I need more of it and it's not here yet. Or I just, it's been raining, I haven't been able to do this, whatever the reason may be. So previously we were able to give an extension. However, there was a question as to the amount because there was not a resolution designating an administrative fee for this particular item. So when staff first looked at this and brought to the attention of our office, Naja, my wonderful paralegal, and I sat down and looked at this and we said, okay, well, there's a $660 fee that we see for this other contract that similarly deals with development, and developers have come to us and asked for an extension, very similar contract, different item. That similar contract being the required subdivision improvements, and that we actually have done, multiple times if they need to, extra time to work on the streets inside the subdivision or put whatever else is missing in there. They will come to us and say, hey, we need an extension. We go ahead, we update the contracts, get those extensions in, make sure we get any updated amounts due for work and for security, get the updated security in, and we have that done. However, all of that does take staff time and additional staff time away from, we have to go through the original contracts, and that's covered under, whatever their original costs are. But it's an additional time taken away from staff where they could be going on initial projects to go back to this specific project and work through an extension. So at this point in time, if I added to the back of this memorandum, there are the two resolutions. There's the one from 2019-89, and that's the one that's actually delegating the authority to the county administrator, or the designee or the authority to go ahead and execute those extensions. But there's nothing in there that delineates the actual amount. So we found the amount in the resolution of 2005-41, and that's similarly talking about extensions, but that's the one I mentioned for, the developers in the actual development itself. For example, they have on their sidewalk extension requests other than for sidewalks is $660. So just to keep consistent, and after talking to staff, they agreed that the $660 amount that they have for things that are other than sidewalks would be appropriate for working through and getting the work done for the extension for right-of-way and agreements for extensions to contracts for that issue under 312.111. And I don't know if you have any questions for us.
Commissioners, any questions for Susan?
No, makes sense. If there's no comments or discussion, I'd be happy to move staff's recommendation.
Second. Was that Commissioner Knoll? Who seconded? Did I get
Commissioner
a second on that?
That was
Fletcher
That
did.
was you? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you.
Fleischer. All right, we have a motion and by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer to accept staff recommendation. Anyone from the public wish to discuss the motion before us?
Thank you, Counselor.
Seeing none. Commissioners, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
13D, designating receiving system transportation plan. Counselor.
Thank you very much. So back in 2017, per Florida statutes, the board adopted a transportation plan in collaboration with the Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network. And it sets forth basically the facilities which people will be taken to under Baker Act or Marchman Act situations. These facilities are the Behavioral Health Center at what is now the Cleveland Clinic and also the New Horizons of the Treasure Coast in Okeechobee. So Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network has worked hard in crafting an updated version of the plan to be consistent with recent statutory changes adopted by the legislature during the last session. Plan was discussed at the last Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting for criminal justice, mental health, and substance abuse, which was held on November 18th. Essentially, at that meeting, we talked about updating the plan to the 2022 plan, just reflecting the same facilities that folks are taken to with regards to the 2017 plan, just otherwise updating some non-substantive issues, updating some of the data in the report. It also references additional facilities and other counties. And other than that, the want to bring it therefore forward with this board to approve the transportation plan to govern these types of issues. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair, and we'll try to do my best to answer questions about this. Trust me, I don't deal with the Marchman Act or Baker Act very often, luckily as the county attorney. So a lot of this stuff is really new, and I appreciate the help of Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network.
Thank you, Counselor. We might can get some help with our fellow ex-police officers, sheriff, deputies, and former sheriff.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So obviously, the background is 2017. Of course, I was in the business of that time in negotiating. This is an extension of the plan. It works well, requires the sheriff to provide transportation to Marchman, Baker Acts, and the like. Additionally, it's absorbed in the sheriff's budget, so this year I'm all favor for it. That's a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Fleischer?
I couldn't add to that. That's why I said second.
Okay.
Just,
You made the motion?
he made the motion.
Made the
Yes.
motion, okay. You seconded it, Vice Chairman?
yeah.
Y'all gotta understand, I'm handicapped up here. Okay.
Well, maybe we need a light.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, seconded by Vice Chairman Adams. Anyone from the public wish to discuss the motion before us? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
We have nothing under Commissioner matters or special district and boards, which is unusual. With that, Commissioners, unless we have anything else to come further before the board, I would deem this meeting adjourned.